Hey, this is Brett Gursky. Welcome to another episode of On the List. This is episode number 71. It's November 2021. We are coming to you from the BLEAV Podcast Network. My guest today is a good friend of mine who's also a very talented and successful director. We first got to know him from his hit movie Van Wilder. He then went on to direct big comedies like Wild Hogs and Old Dogs and family films like Alvin and the Chipmunks. His latest movie, Clifford the Big Red Dog, is in theaters now and also available on Paramount Plus. Of course, I'm talking about Walt Becker. What's up, Walt?
Hey, good to see you, Brett.
You too. I haven't seen you since pre-pandemic.
I know. It's nuts, but it's always good to see your face and reconnect.
You too. So we are on Zoom right now. So the video from this podcast will be available on YouTube and Instagram. So I've wanted to interview you for a while, but I was waiting for Clifford to finally be out in theaters. And the timing of this interview today could literally not be more perfect because just a few hours ago, it was announced that there is going to be a Clifford sequel. Breaking news.
Yes, we were thrilled about that. It was such a long time coming, just getting the movie out
Right.
because we shot it, then COVID happened, then we had to figure out how to edit and do post and all the
Right.
visual effects without going into the studio. And then we're about to come out, and then the COVID numbers went up, and then they hold it. Then we were going to go to 22, and then back to. It just had like 2 or 3 different dates. So finally,
It's here. Yeah, exactly. And so the articles came out today, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, and they say that they want to bring back the original filmmaking team, which means that you would be back to direct the sequel, right? Is that
yes, yes. And we had, prior to this, they had talked about a sequel. We'd gone down the road on a couple of different ideas, actually. And then the new administration came in, and so we had to redo the whole thing. But now the new administration is on, and seems like we'll be getting into all of that soon.
That's amazing. So this is like the first exclusive interview with the director since the announcement of the sequel. That worked out really well.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Well, it's incredible news. Congratulations. We'll get into Clifford in a minute, but I was going over your filmography and I noticed that animals seem to be a running theme in all of your titles. It's like your lucky charm. You've directed Buying the Cow, Wild Hogs, Old Dogs, Alvin and the Chipmunks, and now Clifford the Big Red Dog. So you just needed Van Wilder to be Van
that's it.
Wilder,
I know.
like Van Wilder party animal.
I'm sorry I didn't. Oh, I'm getting a lot of flair, aren't I?
There you
There we
go. Looks good.
I'm sorry I didn't get, figure out a way to get that in the title too.
Yeah,
I was joking around. If I get scripts down, there is an animal in there. I'm like, you know what? We might just have to change the title
exactly.
and see. Or I just embrace it and just, that's the thing.
That's your
That
thing.
becomes the thing.
Yeah, I like it.
A couple of things that are percolating don't have animals in the title, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but we'll see. Never say never.
Yeah, as long as there's an animal somewhere in the script, I
That's
guess.
right. That's right.
So before we talk about your latest movie, Clifford, I always like to give people a little backstory about how I know my guests. So we've been friends for 10 years, and it's actually exactly 10 years because we met November 2011. So happy 10-year anniversary. And
Oh, wow.
I know that because I found the emails where we were introduced. So my manager at the time, Brooklyn Weaver, was like, "You have to meet this producer and director, Walt Becker." And I was like, "Of course I know who Walt Becker is, Van Wilder." And so he set up a general meeting for us. And I came to your office, and I remember we were sitting on these couches. It was me, you, Kelly Hayes, and Ross Putnam. And
Yeah.
remember that?
The crew, was that in the Hollywood office
Yeah, it
or
was in Hollywood. Yep. And I remember that. Yep, Hollywood and Vine. Yeah, exactly. And it was like I had just had my 32nd birthday party like that weekend before, and it was a Gatsby theme. Instead of Great Gatsby, it was Great Gursky. And it was like this big event at Truesdale, and everybody showed up, and DiCaprio was there, and he had just filmed Great Gatsby in Australia. So it was a big deal that like Gatsby was at the Gatsby party. So there was like an article in People magazine on page 6. And so I think the articles came out the day of our meeting. So I remember talking to you about that and kind of explaining who I was and why this was happening and all that stuff. And so it was like,
Yeah, no, I do recall it. And a shout out to Ross Putnam, who's done amazing things now in the indie space
yeah,
and at Verve as
yeah,
an agent. And Kelly Hayes, I just recently heard, is independent independent producing and raising money and doing all kinds of great things.
Oh, I
So
gotta talk
that
to you.
little crew went on. The little birds flew out of the nest and
Totally.
doing great. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great team. And
On top of the game. So
yeah, but I remember we all hit it off that day. We had a lot in common, had kind of like the same sensibilities when it came to scripts and projects and comedies, especially. And, you know, projects that had a lot of heart and mass appeal. So we've been trying to develop a bunch of stuff together over the years. We'll get something going.
yeah, we've gotten close.
We have, yeah. It's gonna end up being something either you direct and I produce, or I direct and you produce. We'll figure out which way it goes. But one thing I have to mention that we did get to work on together was a series of movie screenings and pool parties that we called 60 Sundays, because they were at the 60 Hotel in LA, the roof of the hotel, the rooftop pool. And it was like 2015, and you called me with this idea and you said, I want to throw a weekly Sunday pool party. Where can we do it? And I was like, what, can we tie in movie screenings? And you were like, sure, perfect, because it would make sense that we would do something like that. And so I had seen some screenings on the rooftop of the Thompson Hotel, which became the 60. And they have lounge chairs and cabanas, and you can project a movie on the big wall above the pool. And we did it, and it was a big success.
It was amazing. And then I realized how hard your job is as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I felt bad roping you into those because that was like your one day off. I remember. And you're like, the one time Sunday afternoon that I have actually off. Now I'm working again, but it was very fun. We were editing Alvin,
Yeah.
so that's why we were always over there.
Yeah.
And the screenings were rad. It was a fun time.
Oh yeah.
A little bit of heavy drinking, but it was amazing. The movies were great.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, we did the Clueless 20th anniversary was the first.
That's right. And then what was the one it was a Zac Efron one or something?
Yeah, we did Zac Efron's movie We Are Your Friends before it came out in theaters. My friend.
Yeah, that's right. We were like almost a mini premiere. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, that was a fun time. It was, and we made some money.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forget about that, but that's right.
Yeah, nice little side hustle.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and yeah, we did the Zac Efron movie We Are Your Friends because my friend Max Joseph directed it, and so we did it like with Warner Brothers. So they sent us all the swag to give out, and we also did Cruel Intentions, Wet Hot American Summer, Goonies. And the final one was She's Funny That Way, the Peter Bogdanovich movie before that was in theaters. It was every Sunday of the summer of 2015. It was really
amazing.
Memorable.
Fondly on it. It was great.
Those were some really fun times. But yeah, it's funny. We were firing on all cylinders in 2015. We had Bootsy Bellows going and Nice Guy and Blind Dragon. So it was literally Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. There was something. And then Sunday afternoon, we would do the pool party. And then when the sun went down, we would start the movie. But it was a great time. It was a great event.
And really fun. I think it worked out with Thompson hotels too. It was fun. I felt bad for you. I did. Because I know I kind of cajoled you.
I mean,
letting me be a, sort of party event planner for a time or a season.
Yeah, no, but it was second nature to me at that point. I just had to blast out an email and everybody showed up.
No, it was great.
It was fun, yeah. And I think it was all your friends would come, all my friends, a lot of industry people. So it was, and people still talk about those parties. I've gotten people like asking me, like, do you still do screenings? I was like, that was 2015. Where have you been? But aside from that, for the last 10 years, you've been like a mentor to me. You always read my scripts, and we've gone to a lot of meetings with financiers from all different countries, and we just share a love of filmmaking. So before we talk about your directing career and how you got your start, let's start with your latest movie, Clifford the Big Red Dog. Then we'll go back to the beginning and find out how you broke into the business. So you were first announced as the director of Clifford in September 2017. So you've been attached to this project for a long time.
Like full investigative journalist.
Oh, there's nothing I don't know about you today. You'll find out.
I love this. Yeah, it was 2017. My gosh, so was that almost 4 years? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just to put it in perspective, I actually met on that movie when it was at Universal.
Right.
And then it went in. The option lapsed, and Scholastic set it up at Paramount. And then I had a really wonderful close producer friend, Karen Rosenfeld, who's kind of been one of my champions, and she was producing the Chipmunk franchise among like a gazillion others, Twilight and
Yeah.
Percy Jackson and you name it. And she said, "Oh, you got to go in and meet on this movie, Clifford," and it was at Paramount Animation instead of Big Paramount when I first met. And I swear it was Mark Evans was the president at that point, and my buddy Jared Mass was over at Paramount Animation, and then I got on that job, and then I think I went through 3 different administrations,
Right.
And a few different changes on the creative side, and so it was that was a long process.
Yeah, you've been
made longer by COVID when we pushed a year.
Exactly. Yeah, you've been living with this project like 5 years. It's incredible.
Yeah.
You finally shot the movie New York City in the summer of 2019, from June to August. I mean, it doesn't get better than New York City as a location for a movie. And then like that's just the best. And then after some delays, like you said, because of the pandemic, finally released to the world Wednesday, November 10th, 2021, both in theaters and on Paramount Plus the same day. And even though it was available on Paramount Plus, it still had a big opening weekend, 22 million in theaters, which is a big hit, #1 family film in the country, and at the same time, #1 trending movie on Paramount Plus. So the question is, how does it feel now that your movie, Clifford, is finally out for the world to enjoy?
It feels amazing. It feels, I would say, probably the strongest word is almost relief, you know, because I've had movies that don't make as much money or aren't received as well. And, that can kind of create a little PTSD for, over Thanksgiving, then it goes into Christmas, then New Year's, and then you're grieving for 6 to 8 months. I always tell people, they go, "Are you excited? Your movie's coming out?" And I'm like, no. Because probably the worst part about it is waiting and not having any control over, just how things are going. It was especially nerve-wracking with COVID and wondering if moms would take kids to theaters and then when Brian Robbins came in and became head of the studio, he called me and said, "Hey," because there was a chance we were almost just going to go streaming at one point before he got there too. And I honestly, to be totally candid, I was good with that in a way, because it took, in my mind, a lot of pressure off box office during COVID. So I'm not having to like, oh my God, like sit here and see them dissect every half day. Are you winning or losing?
Exactly.
So for me, I said, you know what? It's fine. It's streaming. People will see it. I don't have to go through this whole grinding thing of a box office weekend. And then he said, "We're going to do it in theaters and we're moving it up. We're not holding it to 22. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then he said, "And we're going to do it in November," which was like 7 weeks from when he called me. And so my mind was like, "Oh no, wait, what are we doing? Like, COVID, and like, how are we doing this?" And then he mentioned also that it was going to stream on Paramount Plus at the same time. And I was, it took a little wind out of my sails, because I told him, "Oh, Brian, it's like a little all pain, no gain as a filmmaker." I said, "So there's no pay window? Like people don't have to buy it for $19.99?
Right.
He said, "No." And I get the business, and it's actually a really smart one for them, because they went in the theaters. I think they boosted, they got over 1 million subscribers in the weekend that it came out. Yeah. And I know a lot of people did that because they were, "Hey, we want to watch Clifford and we don't want to go maybe in the theaters."
Yeah.
So it was a win for them on both sides. And as long as the people that are, risking a lot of money and believing in you get paid back, I think that's good. But the reaction was pretty amazing. And to get an A Cinema score and have audiences sort of feel they do about the movie was great. And one thing he did say, which now, in retrospect, is totally true, is he said, "I want to release it theatrically because I want to do sequels. I believe in the movie and I want to be able to release the movie theatrical only as a sequel. And if we don't do that now, it's going to be harder to do it."
Right. So
a hybrid thing, I said, "Okay, I get that." And then I just crossed my fingers, did a lot of praying, and a testament to Paramount's marketing thing. They had to revamp and you know, get all the materials done in basically 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, it paid off. I mean, it definitely worked. But you were in good company too, because every Warner Brothers movie this year went to HBO Max. Even Nomadland, which won Best Picture, went to Hulu. So, you know, you weren't the only movie going to.
Yeah, and my agents kept reminding me that no one's going to hold these numbers. You know, this is all COVID. Everybody gets it. Everybody gets it. It's coming out streaming for free.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, you know, the neurotic filmmaking group never seems to suck that up.
Exactly, right. But I mean, it's cool because it does make sense that now that this one came out in theaters, now it puts it as a theatrical movie for moving forward for the sequels. That's that's very smart. Yeah, so I have to tell you, I watched it right away on Paramount Plus with my nephew Mason and my nieces Izzy and Sophie. We couldn't wait. We had to watch it right away. And, you know, they've basically got like a movie theater set up in their basement, huge screen. So we watched it the right way. Screens as big as the wall. You know, it got as close to the experience as we could, and made popcorn, got candy. It was just awesome. It was like a really fun thing for me to do with them. And I promised them that I will take them to see it again in the theater if they want to go, so that they can get the real theatrical experience. I told them my friend directed it. They know the whole deal. And I was going to tell you what we thought of the movie over text, but then I was like, let's wait. I'll tell you on the podcast. So basically, I mean, I have to say I loved the movie because I'm a dog lover. My dog Buddy is sitting against me right now. Dog lover, and I'm an uncle, you know, and so it's a story about an uncle and his niece and their dog. So, you know, and I'm someone who grew up reading the books, you know, and then reading them to my nephew and nieces. So for me, it just, you know, worked on every level. Of course, the story hits home to me. But even more, my nephew and nieces loved the movie, and they're the target audience. My nephew's 11, my nieces are twins, they're 9. And when I say they loved it, I mean, like, they were laughing out loud at parts to the point that we couldn't hear the next lines because they were laughing so much. And awesome. There's nothing more fun for me than to hear them enjoying it and laughing, you know, so much. And especially the scenes like where Clifford didn't know his own size or strength, or, you know, Jack Whitehall grabs onto the tail and is taken around the room, stuff like that, that they really enjoyed. Or when he's chasing the guy in the park who's in the big ball. They love that stuff. So it's funny because there's a running joke in the movie that Emily Elizabeth is in 6th grade, but her uncle Casey thinks she's in 4th grade. And my nephew's in 6th, and my nieces are in 4th. So it was like perfect for us. You know?
Nice.
It just hit on it. It checked every box. So you have kids yourself. How old are they now? And do they realize how cool it is that their dad directed the Clifford movie? What do they think of it?
I don't know if the older ones think it. I mean, yeah, I think they're proud and they think it's kind of cool. But, you know, they're like ones at LSU and, you know.
Wait, are they that old already? I've known you 10 years.
Yes. One, yeah. And then the middle one is 15, and he's in high school and doing all the football stuff. So, and he's like, I remember we saw it. I think we saw it on Sunday just because he hadn't seen it at all Sunday opening weekend. And I did get a look. He's like, "That was a really good movie. You did a good job, Dad." That's what he said. So that, you know, that was fun. And the little girl loved it. It was 13, so she.
Perfect.
And she's in the movie too, so I'm sure that's why.
Which part is she?
She's the one, and she actually got in some of the marketing materials, a couple commercials and the trailer. She's the one when Clifford comes into school and she goes, "He's so cute."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Her.
That's so cool.
Yeah, she's she went to see it again, I guess, yesterday with a friend. So she loved it. So that's nice. And she's 13, so she's, you know, kind of young 13, so she's still in the target demo.
Oh yeah, I mean, you had such little kids when I met you. Now they're all grown up. It's crazy.
I know. Well, it's 10 years.
10 years.
Time treads on.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. What's great about kid movies too, or family films, is the repeat viewing. It's like it never gets old. So like we can go see it in the theater and we'll have just as good a time. And people, I'm sure, have watched it multiple times on Paramount Plus. You know, set your kid up every day with it. Yeah, just watch it over and over. It's still number one.
That's been the neat thing about the whole thing is, you know, when you don't know how a movie's going to do or get received. I remember we did it wasn't even a premiere, but a screening in New York.
Yeah.
And I told the cast and the crew that were there, some of them, that I said, I don't know what's going to happen. I said, it's COVID. I said, I don't know how it gets received. I don't know if people go into theaters. The only thing I can say to all of you is that I'm incredibly grateful to work with all the wonderful actors and and this incredible New York crew and everybody else in that. I said, come hell or high water, I'm very proud to put the vibe of this movie and the feelings that it generates for people into the universe. So I said, you should feel, amazing that it, because it's kind of unabashedly uplifting and non-cynical.
Yeah.
And I was hoping it could go into the culture and, in some teeny way, raise the consciousness a little bit of where we're at. And it's been nice to see all the responses. It's been pretty insane. So I think we did that. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it did work on streaming and box office was great too. But I was probably most moved just by how it affected people. And then I think it's going to be one of those movies that are around for a long time.
Totally.
That affected somebody's childhood. Like I had those movies,
Yeah.
I saw when I was 7 or 8 that I still, talk about, want to rent.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Oh, it's the best. Yeah. And so talk about that a little bit. Like, what are the themes of the movie to you that attracted you to the project? Because it does put a positive message out to the world.
Yeah. I think it's been through a lot of different iterations because, there were different scripts and some of the neighbors were in one script and then it kind of blended. But my pitch to the studio was what I saw the movie was one of the favorites of mine as my childhood was E.T.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, that was the paradigm. It was about a young protagonist who felt like they were all alone in the world and, in kind of a rough spot. And then this kind of unique, special creature that comes in their lives. And then through this sort of mutual love, they become empowered together. And then they go on a journey with somebody to try, that's trying to break up that bond.
Oh, yeah.
So that's always honestly how I saw the movie was basically we're doing E.T. with a dog. And I even pitched that to our animators because, I didn't want to do the fully anthropomorphic version or like for sure not talking dog.
Yeah.
So I just said, let's look at Clifford as like a dog plus 30%. Yeah. So he can maybe be in on a joke 30% more than a normal dog. But I said, anybody that owns animals will tell you, you can look at Buddy and know what he's feeling. He can look at you, and if you're sad, he knows it. If you're mad, he knows it. If you're happy, he knows. Like, we don't need to talk to each other to understand what we're feeling. And so that was my take on it. And so like E.T., who, could communicate with different things, and then eventually says that one word, which was, or 2 words, which was amazing. I just thought, there's a lot of ways to communicate non-verbally. And so that's what we decided to do. But that was the paradigm for it, really, for me.
Yeah. And it's about community and unity and coming together. And even though Clifford is different, he's very big and he's very red. And you learn that those differences aren't something to be afraid of. They're something to embrace. And he loves just like everybody else. It's a really nice.
That was another thing that I thought was so cool was just the idea of getting that theme out there. And oddly, it was, a lot of this social justice and unrest and all the stuff that was going on was after we shot the movie. So it just, in a weird way, became more timely, I think. But to hear kids say, oh, I'm going to stand up for myself, or I love that they say it's okay to be different because I feel like I'm different. And I don't know. It's just it's a very cool thing.
Oh, yeah. It's a very important message. And it's a very, nice way to get it out there through a story of a girl and her dog. So like you said, it was 2019 when you shot it. The pandemic didn't happen until 2020. So yeah, you captured these themes that are even more important and relevant now when the movie's coming out. And also part of that is you shot in New York City and it was the real New York City. A lot of movies fake New York City, but you guys did the real deal and you got to capture New York City in 2019, pre-pandemic, what the world used to be like when we took it for granted, and the way life used to be. So talk about, deciding to film in New York City and what that experience was like. Because to me, that's the dream, filming a movie.
Yeah. And I'd shot in New York on a couple of films, but only, like a week or 2 weeks or something like that, and done a couple of commercials, but you're only out there for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So this was the first time that I actually lived out there for like 8 months. And then I actually loved it. Like I couldn't get past being a California boy. Like I couldn't get past the Groundhog's Day of it all, like waking up and you're, and I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. I could not get over that. But then I rented an apartment, a loft, the whole floor from the head of Scholastic. So I lived across the street, and it was a building that he owned, and it was on Mercer. And just like the raddest neighborhood in Soho, and
Mercer's the best.
Walk to the Taylor. I go down to Finelli's for breakfast. It was just like, so then I finally learned what it really was like to live in New York. And I loved it. But the reason we decided to set it there was I was such a big fan of the Paddington movies. And I said, why don't we try to at least aspire, to sort of make a version of this that kind of makes New York a character and kind of a love letter that city like Paddington did for London. And it's going to feel different. It's not going to be Paddington. And by the way, that both of those movies are pretty priceless. So, I had no, kind of delusions of grandeur, like, hey, we'll just make Paddington. But I did say, let's aspire and let's make New York what London was to Paddington. And I think we did. I think for this version of the movie, it was. And then we decided to set the home in Harlem, which was nice.
Yeah.
It was shot on 154th Street, which was incredibly diverse neighborhood anyway. And so bringing in the other thing that was great about New York City, and the other thing we wanted to shoot is not all the locations that you've always seen. So, don't shoot the Statue of Liberty, or, we wanted to show different parts of New York that felt like the city and not necessarily like a tourist trap.
Right.
But being in New York, in addition to the great crews, we had an amazing acting base. So
the best.
I mean, we had so many folks from Saturday Night Live in the movie, and then we built out the neighbors with just like this incredible who's who of comics and talented people. So at Broadway, we had some amazing Broadway actors in it.
Yeah, it's an amazing cast. Yeah, we'll talk about the cast in 1 second, but I want to say New York looks amazing in the movie. Like every shot is beautiful. The parks, the apartments, everything. And I almost felt like Emily Elizabeth's apartment with her mom is like old fashioned almost. It's classic. It feels like it was maybe could have been around when the books were around, and all the cars on the street are like classic cars. So it gives it this timeless feel like the books, which I thought was
oh, wow. That's good. That's really nice that you picked up on that. We had an amazing production designer when she found the street and on 154th. She literally showed the producer and I so she took a picture and then she said, imagine this door kind of a pastel green, and then imagine this, and she created this sort of magical thing, and then we're adding flowers here, and it really made it kind of a storybook street. And then to your point about the car, so what I said to everybody on the movie was, let's just try to, on every level, exceed expectations, or at least try to keep a certain theme. So one of the things that I loved about Paddington so much is the design of that movie was down to, where they did it, the color of the doors, just like you said, the vehicles on the street. So if you look back on our block, all those cars are pastel colors and they're all semi-vintage. So there's not one new car on that whole street. And you don't really notice it or think about it, but it definitely kind of helped again with the vibe. It was like thinking all the way down to what vehicles are on the street and can we preserve that sort of New York quaintness, I guess.
Yeah, you kind of made it like storybook illustration.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And that's why I think that animation stuff at the end works so well, because
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, shooting in New York City for 3 months sounds like a dream, and you got to be there for 8 months. Now, looking back, I wish I had asked you for a job on the movie because I was like 8 months in New York at that time in 2019.
Oh
You know,
no, yeah, you definitely should have.
that would have been amazing.
Yeah,
That's
we were there, and then we went to shoot at Gold Coast, somewhere on Long Island, I guess.
oh yeah, the studios.
Gold Coast
Yeah.
Studios, yeah.
Yeah, so you got done with all your filming in 2019. Thankfully, pandemic hits March 2020, affects your post production. So you had to do post virtually or Zoom. Like, how are you guys editing this movie and getting it ready to get out there?
So we were about, let's say, 80% done edit. We hadn't tested the movie yet.
And that's pretty good. 80% is
Yeah,
pretty
yeah. So we got a little ahead of steam. We're at the bungalows on the lot there, and then I remember it was on a Friday, and then they told everybody on the lot. They said, "Hey, sorry, it was a Thursday." They told everybody on the lot, "Hey, we're going to experiment with working from home tomorrow because of the pandemic." So that was Friday, and then by Monday, it was no one's coming back, and then literally like all my stuff like stayed in that office for like a year.
Right.
It was nuts. So
you thought it would be a week probably at most.
Yeah, they ended up putting. We ended up getting some Avid systems in the editor's house and then the editor's assistant. So we started editing using Evercast and a couple of different things, and that actually worked okay. I mean, truthfully, I'd be like, well, I could probably do this in another movie.
Right. I think it's going to change things.
I didn't necessarily mind that. That worked pretty well.
Yeah.
What was weird is when we did the score and stuff like that, we weren't allowed to, that's one of my favorite parts of movie making.
Yeah.
When you get over the, 150 person orchestra and listen to an amazing score played live. I'm always amazed that people, they just open the sheet music and then, it's like, okay, you guys ready? And it's like literally comes out. So my ear is perfect. Of course, he always makes adjustments or whatever.
But yeah, you had John Debney was your composer.
Yeah, oh, he's great. Good buddy and an amazing composer. And then the other weird part that people don't think about finishing movies in COVID was how do you test it?
Right.
So, I was like, the first time they talked about doing a test, they said, well, we're going to send links to people. I said, what do you mean links? Like people are going to watch it at home on their computers with like a burn in? Right. That's what they did. So I was kind of horrified at that. But it did give us like a little bit of information. Then I asked the studio to do a slightly different cut that we could test against the current cut that ended up testing amazing.
Oh, wow.
So we did that in Oklahoma somewhere. But instead of being able to, because California was totally shut down, Oklahoma was open with masks indoors. Wow. And then we had to do, instead of a one room of 300 people, we had to do 6 screenings of 50 people.
Wow.
And somehow the research department pulled it off, and it tested great. But yeah, there was a lot of weird things going on. And then just working with visual effects in London, because then they shut down. First, they weren't shut down. They were all in the office. And then about, 3 or 4 weeks after us, then they're like, hey, we're shut down. So now you've literally got me at my house, editor this house, post people, then London and Montreal, all in their houses. Truthfully, I don't even know how they got it done, to be honest. But
it happened. You pulled it off. Yeah, you did it. And so you guys got to go back to New York City for, like you said, the screening with the cast and crew. It was actually November 4th, my birthday.
Oh man, if I would have known.
Yeah. I know, I didn't know about it either.
I think I had like 1 ticket left or something. Like it wasn't really a premiere. Paramount was like, we don't do premieres.
Well, they can't really do them. Yeah, exactly. No, but it was a screening for the cast and crew. You all got to be back together. Right. And so what was that like to be back with everybody in New York City, where you shot it years later, to celebrate the movie finally coming out, to watch it all together? How was that?
That was great. A little, again, it's always nerve-wracking showing your movie to anybody. It's hard for me to sit and enjoy it. First of all, because I see a couple of scenes that I go, God, I wish I did this different. I think that's true with every director, but
of course.
But what was really nice to see is the genuine level of love that the cast had. Like, writers in tears hugging me, and actors going, "I'm so proud of this movie." Like, I can't. That was really nice, and the cast did kind of become a family on it.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes you do movies and people like it, but this one you could really feel the love and the sort of the pride, I guess, the pride everybody felt was. And again, that was, before the movie came out. So I kept trying to temper expectations. I said, look, there's a lot of things we can't control, but feel good about getting this feeling into the world. So that was the best part, I think, is just seeing how much the cast loved it and felt proud to be a part of it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think everything works out how it's supposed to. I think it's coming out exactly when it should be coming out, when it was supposed to come out, because it's a feel good movie coming out around Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah. It's like perfect time of year. It wasn't originally going to be a holiday movie, but I think it worked out to be this perfect family film, perfect holiday movie. Maybe it'll be something people watch, every year around the holidays now.
Yeah, well, what's funny about that is so after this, the international rollout,
Right.
the UK is December 10th. Like Germany is Christmas. Austria, I'm a little nervous, of course, because it's like every day I read like some other country shut down in Europe. So I'm like,
right,
plans for this? What's happening? But it is a total Christmas release in much of Europe, nice. Australia, Mexico, Brazil. So and the marketing materials are different. So, and I love them too. So just because you have, it's like this red dog, which goes so well with that holiday,
yeah,
Christmas and everything. So all their materials out there for Europe and Latin America and Japan and a few things are more holiday themed, and it really works. There's something about a big red dog in Christmas. So
Santa hat.
We're all that. Yeah, that's what they're gonna feel like. Oh, this is a Christmas movie.
How cool! Because it wasn't intended to be. That's amazing.
No.
It's amazing how things work out sometimes. Yeah. So I want to give people a little background on Clifford himself, because I looked into it and it's pretty fascinating. So the Clifford books began in 1963. So almost 60 years ago. Anyone who's either been a kid or had a kid, since 1963 has read a Clifford book or had one read to them. They were written by a man named Norman Bridwell, published by Scholastic Books. I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, so the Scholastic Book Fair was like the coolest day of school, of course. And, now my nephew and nieces have Scholastic Book Fairs. I'm sure your kids do. Clifford's the official mascot of Scholastic Books. So from 1963 to 2015, Norman Bridwell wrote 80 Clifford books, 80, which I didn't realize. First one was simply called Clifford the Big Red Dog. The last one, appropriately enough, because it's Hanukkah time, Clifford Celebrates Hanukkah. And he passed away in 2014. They published his last two books after that in 2015. And I don't know, are they, because you've been working with Scholastic, are there plans to continue the books? Does it now move into just films, or did it sort of end with Norman?
No, we're very close to Scholastic, and they were such an amazing partner. Like, we were so blessed to have such a great company and a family company, really.
Yeah.
I don't know what their plan. I know they released a graphic novel that was like based on the movie. So
that's cool.
They published that, and it was literally, here's the story of the movie in graphic novel form.
So I like that.
I'm sure that they'll probably do a little bit more, but we just thought a lot of the author, Mr. Bridwell, and that's why we named John Cleese's character.
I love that. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, to him and his really just wonderful nature. Because if you see interviews, which we watched, and he's just really charming. They're more like picture books, and they have the liberty to make him 3 stories tall, or sometimes he's not. But what I took away from the books was, I said, the one thing we need to take away from it is the essence of it, which to me was unconditional love.
Yes.
So that's what we built the movie around, just the power of that bond and the emotion between, an owner and their dog.
Yeah, and no one had ever tried to do it live action before. So the books had, they spawned an animated series from 2000 to 2003 on PBS. And John Ritter, who I loved, I grew up watching Three's Company, my favorite person. He was the voice of Clifford, and it was a talking dog. And then in 2019, the animated show was rebooted by Amazon Prime and PBS. So new episodes have been airing there. So he's had a comeback, Clifford, in the last few years, but it was always animated. So talk about, how long have they been trying to make a live action version of Clifford?
I think honestly, I think like 20 years, maybe.
Wow.
The list of writers that I have seen, take cracks at scripts on this project. And I'm saying like some of the most Tiffany writers you could ever believe, like, heroes of mine in the screenwriting world. But it was a very, I think it was a very tough nut to crack because, well, for a lot of reasons. And then when you get into the live action world, you have to start saying, are we bringing the cartoon, into the live action world, or do we make him real? And then once you realize that, a dog can look pretty cute red in a drawing, but when you see like an actual red dog, it's a little jarring. So we had R&D, like, what's the perfect shade of red and how, that was a task. At the end of the day, I think that the right take was, because I've read drafts that he was 3 stories tall. I've read drafts, just different ones. For me, there was a perfect size for him, and it wasn't 3 stories tall, because I said, then you're doing King Kong, like,
Godzilla.
And it's not, it's a different type of movie. I don't feel the connection necessarily. But it was interesting that you bring up Bridwell, because the real genesis of it, according to him, was that he always dreamt of having a dog big enough for him to ride as a horse. So I said, let's just go back to the source and say, what is that? And, it was generally, like a 8 or 10 foot dog. To me, it was like, oh yeah, this would be just big enough to be amazing and not too big where you're like, he's terrifying. And then the other thing is, the only way to do a 3-story dog movie is all exteriors, basically. I mean, like Clifford on the farm. So what people didn't realize, and I know there's a lot of chatter like, oh, it should be bigger, he should be smaller, he should be this and that. But if you ever wanted to do anything with him indoors, there is a size that he has to fit into to get through doors and up hallways, and that was basically max at 10 feet. So.
Right. I was just going to say he has to be big enough to fit in the bedroom, Emily Elizabeth's bedroom, without being too big to fit in it. So that's sort of how you gauge it. He has to be the size of the room, and he can't be any bigger because he'll break through the ceiling. So
that's right. We didn't want him, taking out door frames like every time you walk through a room or into a room, or
he's still the family pet, so he needs to fit in.
We did a lot of previs actually with that. I remember the first time we were at, I think it was 3rd floor, very early stages, and they build a model and we're testing out different sizes, and I think it was a 12-foot dog, but we put him in a room like on our set, and I just went, oh my god, that was one of the moments where you're like, am I really trying to make this? Because he couldn't even like turn around, like he was smashing into furniture, like couldn't go through a door, like his body couldn't curl around. It was pretty brutal. But then we found kind of the perfect size, and then you come up with little tricks to make it even better. Like, if you notice in their apartment, it's pocket doors for the 2 rooms, which made it easier for us. So
yeah, well, he looks real. I mean, I feel like I've heard you say that you couldn't even make this version of the movie a few years ago. You needed the technology that we have now to really pull it off, because his fur looks real, the color red, the reflections, all look real. He looks like a real dog.
Yeah, for sure. 5 years ago, VFX would not have been able to do that. And then, MPC, who was our visual effects company, did an amazing job. They were the guys and girls who did Jungle Book, Favreau's one, the redo, and then The Lion King, when they did all those photoreal animals. So
those look
the
good.
producer and I kind of knew that was a great company, that they knew at least animals and fur rigs and behavior, but they'd never done a puppy. So this was all basically new to them. But I swear I watched Clifford sometimes because we just got a little Cavalier King Charles puppy.
Oh, nice.
He was like, I think 13 weeks old now, but I go,
Oh,
oh
that's
my gosh,
amazing.
it's like watching Clifford. So they did an amazing study of just the energy of puppies, what they do. It was pretty incredible. Yeah,
I
but
thought
I don't think you could have pulled it off. Yeah, even 5 years ago for
I
sure.
thought the exact same thing though. Your puppy Clifford reminded me so much of Buddy when he was a puppy. The way he looked and act, the ears are floppy and almost too big for them. It's like
Yes,
the
yes,
greatest.
and that's different. The behavior between puppies and full-grown dogs.
Absolutely, yeah,
So different. And we wanted him to be big, but we wanted him to be big, but still a puppy. We
yeah.
didn't want him to, it's not Benjamin Button or whatever. We didn't want him to age. We just wanted him to be big. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think in the books he was a Christmas gift that she got from a pet store, but you guys instead went with an animal rescue place, which I
Yes.
thought also sent a really, important message, another message in the movie about pet adoption and rescuing and I like that. I adopted Buddy
Yeah.
from a place called Spot in Los Angeles and 5 years ago and it's the
Is that
greatest.
on La Cienega?
Yeah, it
Or,
was on La
yeah,
Cienega.
no, near what's the deli?
Which
Uh,
one?
it's not Canners, or is it Canners?
No, that's Fairfax. This is La Cienega, but same kind of area. Yeah, like
Oh, okay.
Melrose and Fairfax. I mean
Yeah,
Melrose and La Cienega.
we
Exactly.
wanted to do the animal shelter, and then we thought that we needed sort of a magical character to come in to help us with the entry into the world. And thank God we got John Cleese, because I
Amazing.
told the studio and I told our producer Jordan Kerner, I said, if we don't get the right guy for Bridwell, I'm not sure the movie works, because if you don't buy that he's got this sort of magical vibe to him, the sort of entry point would be so hard to get people to kind of buy into. But he's such a magical guy in real life and with that voice and
Exactly. I know.
yeah.
I can't imagine anyone else doing it.
He was absolutely perfect casting. We couldn't have done better.
Well, that's a perfect transition. Let's talk about the cast. So Darby Camp plays the iconic character Emily Elizabeth. Jack Whitehall plays her uncle Casey. Sienna Guillory is her mom Maggie. Isaac Wang is her friend Owen. And then from there, it's like a who's who of actors and comedians. John Cleese, as you said, Mr. Bridwell, this magical animal rescuer who gives Clifford to Emily Elizabeth. He's, of course, like you said, named after the author of the books. Tony Hale is the owner of a company called Life Grow. He's the villain. Tova Felcha is the neighbor. Mrs. Krullerman. David Allen Greer is the superintendent. Mr. Packard. Keenan Thompson is the vet. Rosie Perez, Paul Rodriguez, Horatio Sands, Russell Peters, Russell Wong, Ty Jones, Bear Allen Blaine, and Keith Ewell, who I've known for years through both.
Yeah.
So everywhere you look in the movie, there's a familiar face, very New York cast, like you said. And then, Keenan Thompson, Horatio Sands, Alex Moffat, Siobhan Fallon, all from Saturday Night Live. David Allen Greer from In Living Color. So tell me how you put this all-star cast together for this Clifford movie.
Well, it was great. First of all, we knew we had to make sure we got Emily right. And so when we got Darby, we looked at a lot of places, and there are a couple talented girls, but Darby just had such a wonderful, it's hard to describe. She's good. She's so smart and good with comedy, but she's just got like an authenticity to her and like performances that you feel what she's feeling. You want to just embrace her. She's just, I think she's one of the most talented actors at her age. And then I think, I think John Cleese came on next too. He had worked with our producer, Jordan Kerner, in a few movies. And
that helps.
He said, I think I could get John. I said, oh my gosh. Cause Monty Python, I was like, those are my childhood movies.
Yeah.
Try to explain to my kids, like all these running jokes from, whatever, pick Monty Python, movie. And, they're like, what are you talking about?
That's like a full circle moment for you to be able to.
Oh yeah. Oh, and then what a wonderful and sweet and genuine guy he is. And then Jack Whitehall, which was, he's such a big comic in the UK. And I think we saw a stand-up of him.
Oh yeah. Love that.
Maybe I saw a clip. I can't remember what I saw, but I was sold after like watching him for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And he's such a ballsy guy. because, and I told Jack this afterwards when the movie came out and did great, and I said, you know what? I said, there's a great saying that fortune favors the bold, and you were bold. You were going to come in as sort of the only adult character that's in the whole thing, with a bunch of kid actors, with a invisible dog that you don't know what looks like yet, on a new property, doing an American accent.
Right.
Like that takes a lot of guts. And honestly, I'm sure that was terrifying to a lot of other actors that we were, discussing. And I said, so I'm so happy. Like, you won, and you won because you were brave, and you did an amazing job. But he's also just a super collaborative partner. He would pitch stuff. He's just naturally charming, super witty, funny. He was so great with the kids. Oh my gosh. So him and Darby were like amazing together.
Yeah, you really believe that they're uncle and niece. They have that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then Sienna, who's so beautiful and such a great actor, and who also took Darby in her wing, was such a great mom. And then with the neighborhood and all the, Tony Hale I'd worked with on Chipmunks.
Right.
And he just makes a great villain, because for me, it's just like, if the villain also makes you laugh, it's everything in these movies. And he's such a talented guy and so funny. I'm like, we gotta see if he'll come back and do it. And then with the neighborhood, it was, I'm always a believer. Everybody goes, oh, why do you try to I've been accused of overcasting sometimes. I don't even know what that means. But my feeling is, to use a football reference, you just draft the best team you can. Like, stack the deck, try, so-and-so's available, second round pick. Yes, let's do it. Yes. So I don't look at it like, why do you have to have, I don't know. To me, it's like playing tennis. You can have a great actor, and if somebody isn't on par with them, it's not a great tennis game.
But I think it's fun for the audience too to see Kenan Thompson as the vet. Why not?
Oh yeah, and then every scene elevates. So like that scene was not nearly as funny. It was funny. The writers did a good scene, but not nearly as funny as it was after Kenan came in.
Yeah.
And that was true with everything. And then, so when you see these sort of charming faces like Rosie all of a sudden, and then you're like, oh my God, it's Russell Peters,
Yeah.
And Toma, she's on Broadway in this giant play, and now she's here. Or Keith Ewell, who's a buddy of ours who did amazing with Bear, and Horatio and Alex and all these people. Just everywhere you look, there's a face that makes you smile, and an actor that elevates the scene. So it's not just relying on Jack or Darby or whoever.
Well, it's interesting because Rosie Perez, she works in the vet office, and even though she had a smaller role, she actually has a very important role. She explains to the kids that any animal that comes in from Mr. Birdwell's rescue has a magical element to it. So she actually, plays a pivotal role in the movie. So all of these actors that you mentioned had to act opposite a 10-foot dog that wasn't there, but you found a way to have them act opposite something. I've seen the footage. So it kind of explain where you got the idea and what you did.
Well, I got the idea after seeing a play called War Horse, which they use this like puppeteered horse with guys, which I was just blown away by. I'm like, oh my gosh, like you're watching it, you're like, that's a horse. So I said, we could do a cheap version of that. We called it the Chinese Dragon, because the other thing I referenced was when we were trying to figure out what a cost-effective way to reference was. I said, well, look, you see these Chinese dragons in parades, and one guy's controlling the head and the other guy controls the tail, and you could even just do it simple fabric if we wanted, and it would help. So we ended up doing that, and then we built with a great creature effects company. We built kind of a head that was the right size, and the puppeteer could cock the head different ways and could make the mouth open and close, and puppeteer from inside. I think it was a shoulder rig, and then he could a little bit like running an old-fashioned plane with a wire, fly-by-wire. So he did that, and then the tail could also move, and we found two amazing puppeteers that were also actors. And I swear, when they had gotten the dog behavior so good that you watch it and really feel like Clifford was right there in the room. Like they could make him sad. They make him, shake the head out. They just nailed it. So I think it was part putting actors in charge of that apparatus.
Yeah.
But just, we haven't seen a 10-foot dog, so you don't even know where to look. I mean, but having it there in the actual space really helped. That way, if you had multiple people in a room or in a scene, what people don't understand is how big a 10-foot dog is and like where the tail ends and where the butt is. So we don't want, like, when we're animating, to get caught like, oh my gosh, we can't go through this person. So but having those two guys there, if the tail was getting close to you, people would step out of the way, it worked like a real dog. And then we just basically animated over that puppet, for the final product.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, and it made the eye lines work. They were acting opposite a dog, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you always shoot a plate shot, obviously. You do one with the puppet, and then you take the puppet out, and then you shoot a plate shot where nothing's there. So they still have to just remember, where am I looking, where are the eye lines, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that was a lifesaver.
So now that you've seen it, what are some of your favorite scenes from the movie?
I love a lot of the fun stuff. I think I love the tent, just because I couldn't believe they got that many live animals to just sit there. They were all in there, by the way. So this wasn't
really?
Split screen or anything. Like, every animal in that tent was in there at the same time. So the sloth is hanging. I don't even know how Mike Alexander, our guy, got them to do all this. But he had a cat right next to a mouse, right next to a snake, sloth, hamster, dogs, and these iguana. They just didn't move. It was insane. They all stayed where they needed to be, and that all at once. We didn't separate any animals. So that's a favorite of mine. Also, because we kind of reveal John Cleese to our main cast. So anytime I loved it. And then Peter Collister, our DP, just made it look so amazing. It just felt so kind of Harry Potter to me that I liked it.
Exactly.
And my other favorite was probably the dock scene. Just because it was so sad, and like so many people are like crying in that scene. Like, I get videos sent all the time about not just little kids crying, but like adults. And for me, that was actually that was a little bit more personal, because it was based on an experience I had when I had to lead my dog when I was 8 in Tennessee. So my dog growing up, since I was born to then, was this dog Teddy, a golden retriever. And we briefly moved to Memphis, Tennessee for a year. And then we lived on a house with like 5 acres, and he became like this amazing outdoor dog, and he just loved it. He just roamed around. And then we were going to move back to California. And then my parents were like, we're going to move into a smaller house, like not a big yard. And I don't think it's fair to take Teddy back there. And we kind of agreed in theory that it wasn't fair to him. And the new owners loved him and said, oh, we would love to have him.
Oh my God.
But it was brutal, because then, and this has never gotten out of my head. We were in this like camper with the door that was made of glass, those old ones that fit on the pickup truck. And we say goodbye, and my brother and I are crying, and dad and mom are crying. And my brother and I are in the back of the camper, and then the camper is driving away, and Teddy is running down the driveway after us. And my brother and I are just like, goodbye, Teddy. We love you. We love you so much. I mean, I've never forgotten that. Like, and he's barking, and oh my God, I feel guilty now even just talking about it. I know it wasn't my decision, but anyway, so that was just, I was like, oh my God, that was traumatizing. So I pitched the studio on a version of that. I said, if we have to do a say goodbye to a dog, I know exactly what to do, because I felt that. Like, so anyway, that boat scene was basically my camper in Memphis scene in 1978. Watching me have to leave my dog, knowing that it's the same thing. It was like knowing that that's probably better for the dog, and you have to make a choice that hurts you more. So in weird, that was a pretty close parallel to the movie. But I always recalled that. I knew that scene would kill because I lived it.
Wow. And you never saw each other again? You guys didn't go back?
No, no.
Wow.
He was a good dog, though. But yeah, it wouldn't have been fair to him
Yeah.
to take him back. So anyway, yeah.
That's an amazing story. Wow. Well, I have to say, I mean, as much as we laughed throughout the whole movie, I did get choked up probably 3 times. I would say the first time was Emily Elizabeth brings Clifford home and she's holding him. They're going to sleep and she's talking to him as they're going to sleep. And he's like on her chest. And that's exactly, Buddy was like 2 pounds when I got him. He was 8 weeks old. And he used to sleep on my chest because he was so small. And our heartbeats used to be like in unison and we would fall asleep like that and wake up like that. And so watching Emily Elizabeth and Clifford go to sleep like that and she cries and her tears like magically we think make him grow. So that was the first time you get a little choked up. Second time was the dock scene for sure because he thinks he's being sent away because he's so big and cumbersome, and so he curls up to make himself really small. And they're like, "What's he doing?" And Emily Elizabeth says, "He's making himself small." So that's the second one. I looked over and my nieces had like tears in their eyes too. And then the end of the movie, the same thing. She makes this big speech because Clifford does come back, even though he's on the boat for a little bit, comes back and she, explains to the community, like she teaches them that just because he's different, it's nothing to be afraid of. It's something to be celebrated. And, I think those were like the 3 most touching moments of the movie, and you nailed them all, you pulled it off. And I just think it captured like the purity of the books and the purity of the character. Like so many things nowadays have to be edgy and raunchy and push the envelope. And you guys just made a movie that was like pure of heart and, has great messages of unity and hope. And like you said, unconditional love.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what other scene gets me choked up for some reason? And it's not even a scene. It's like the way John Cleese says it, but and then also it's because I was so proud of just the vibe of the movie, but I always choke up when he says, when he's talking about right before the end credits, like, it was like, I forget what the words are, some version of, how the love, a big dog and the love the girl shares, reunites a city or something like that.
Yeah.
The way John says it, that always kind of chokes me up a little bit too.
Yeah, I just got chills when you said that because that's right. It's almost like the storybook is closing, and then we see the illustrator.
That's another part of it that does that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a great Easter egg there too at the end where Uncle Casey, who's an illustrator, now works at Scholastic, which I thought was cool.
You're pretty good at this movie breakdown stuff. Yeah,
well, I've done it my whole life. Anytime I've watched a movie, I always notice every little.
That's great. It was cool. We screened in the New York screening, that premiere. We screened in the Clifford Theater.
Oh,
so
wow.
People are they have the Clifford Cafe, the Clifford Theater. It really is their mascot. I would say it's like the beloved property because it was around for so long. And so when all the folks from Scholastic who hadn't seen the movie saw that last image, they all went crazy and started cheering. It was a cool little shout out to them.
Yeah, it's amazing what you guys pulled off. Like I said, the books have been around for almost 60 years. It's a huge undertaking, no pun intended, a huge dog. And there had to be a lot of pressure to get it right. And like you said, there were, you guys got it right in terms of the size and the color and the tone and the mood and the actors, and so much work went into it. And the finished product is so good. It's something you should be really proud of, I think.
I appreciate that.
And I also want to mention the soundtrack because my nieces love Madison Beer, and there is a Madison Beer song on the soundtrack made for the movie called "Room for You." It's the end credit song. I've actually hung out with Madison Beer and her dad at Delilah when she was going out with adults still, because she was young. And there's a Kesha song, there's a BTS song. You guys put together this cool, fun soundtrack, which
I hope. That I'm such a big fan of that song. I hope it goes up for original song because
it's really good.
It's amazing. And Ryan Tedder, New Republic, he's the one who wrote it.
One Republic, yeah,
super talent. And I didn't necessarily think that song was going to be. I think it was going to be somewhere else in the movie, but he had written it, and then they're like, "What about this for the end?" And then as soon as we heard it at the end. It was great. He was singing it before, so it was a guy version, and then they got Madison to sing it, you know, to kind of represent this sort of female vibe and
Yeah, Darby, yeah.
Emily Elizabeth thing. I love that song.
Yeah.
I bought it on iTunes too. It's such a cool song. I encourage everybody to just even download it because it's really good.
Yeah, it's good. Madison Beer, Room for You, and it, you know, has double meaning, like room for you because he's this giant dog. They have to make room for him.
Yep.
So I love that. But I think, you know, really moving, heartwarming, and also funny film, entertaining for the whole family, and you know, stays true to the books. And so, like you said, it's going to open internationally soon, so it'll make even more money. And normally I would ask now if there was going to be a sequel, but we already know there will be a sequel. So now it's been, you know, 2-3 years since you guys started, and Darby's grown up. So would you do kind of the teenage Emily Elizabeth? What will you do next?
Yeah, for sure. Well, there was a couple of ideas thrown around. One was actually kind of a European, you know, because Jack, you know, and Sean British, and so there's a fun sort of story surrounding them going across the pond. I don't know if we're going to still do that or not. It'll definitely be Darby as Emily Elizabeth, and you know, we're going to write a story that sort of works with her age now. So I think she's 14 now, I want to say. Maybe 15. I think she just had a birthday.
Right.
But yeah, we're going to do a very age-appropriate story for her.
Nice.
This was the other thing that was nice in retrospect. I kind of wanted to hold the movie till 22 when there was no COVID.
Yeah.
But you know, she'd be driving herself to set.
Right. Exactly.
So in the event that we were doing a sequel, it was definitely better for us that it comes out now.
Exactly. She can plan ahead.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a chance that you guys would film in New York City again?
I think so. Definitely, it's going to be in the movie somewhere. I don't know if it's the start and we go launch somewhere, or if it's, I guess for me, always as a director, I just don't want to repeat ourselves on stuff. So
right.
The challenge on this movie, I already know, is going to be to capture the same essence as the first one and not repeat ourselves on gags or jokes, or, you know, and we don't have a talking dog. So, you know, it's not like just write new dialogue and it's
right.
You know, it's not, you know, Pixar, you know, it's not Sing or a Pixar movie where, you know, you just write a new story. There's things that dogs can do and things that don't. We have a little bit of magic we've already set up, so who knows what happens.
Right.
But yeah, I just don't want us to repeat stuff or show the same gags. That's why I feel like probably there'll be New York plus something new. But I don't know.
Yeah, you got to go back to the 80 books and find another story that works. But it's funny, I noticed that in the scene in the vet's office when they're waiting to go into the vet, all those pet owners holding their dogs, and I was like, why didn't I bring Buddy that day to the set? We could have been in the sea.
I wish I knew you were in New York at the time.
I wasn't in 2019.
Okay.
But I would have gotten myself there. I would have gotten myself.
You were this whole time. I'm like, oh my gosh.
No, I wasn't. I was in LA. So yeah, no, I wasn't.
Okay, good. Otherwise, yeah, I would have put you in that scene with Buddy.
When I saw it, I literally said to my nephew and nieces, I was like, oh, Buddy and I could have been in the waiting room with the vet. So because there's going to be a sequel, Buddy and I need to be in.
Okay, you guys are in for sure. Somewhere you are in the movie for sure.
Wherever you film, I will be there for sure.
So, you know, there are some in those images at the, you know, in the Scholastic building. A lot of those dogs are like some of the cast or cruise dogs.
Oh, so really?
Their King Charles is the cabin. You know, they just sent pictures in and we just drew.
Oh, that's so cool. And weren't there a lot of like influencer dogs from Instagram in the movie?
Oh, a ton. Yeah. They've actually really helped promote the movie. So they're in that last scene at the park.
Yeah.
They all holding up their dogs. It's like a quick thing, but yeah, I didn't realize they had such huge followings.
Oh yeah.
They were like 500,000 people, 1 million people. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I admit I follow some dogs on Instagram, including my own. He has an account.
They really helped.
Buddy Gursky has his own account. On there. Well, I look forward to more Clifford movies from you and whatever else you do next. But now is when it becomes like inside the actor's studio, or in this case, inside the director's studio, Walt Becker edition. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so tell everybody where you were born and raised.
I was born in, well, technically in Hollywood, but raised in Pasadena, California. So grew up local. I went to PHS, which was Pasadena High School,
Right.
just public school kid with no entertainment connections. And then went to UCLA undergrad, and then went to SC grad school, which is now the School of Cinematic Arts.
Right, film school.
Or film school. Yeah,
So,
for my master's.
so what's your earliest memory of saying like, I want to make movies when I grow up?
Probably making, I was fortunate enough, we had family friends whose father was a big author and documentary filmmaker. So
Oh, cool.
they had access to equipment and video equipment and all this stuff. So we started making movies and using all their stuff and editing stuff like, like 8, 9, 10 years old.
Nice.
We write the script. So, we would get together with 3 families almost every weekend for a long, long time. And then on the weekend, and sometimes 2 days on the weekend, but we would start writing a script in the morning. We'd shoot like mid-afternoon, then we'd edit. And a lot of times we just edit it in camera,
Yeah,
add
exactly.
music, and then we'd show it at night. And generally they were slasher movies, because it was the 70s. So that was like the heyday of horror slasher movies, and also because they were very easy plots. Like we just said, okay, who's going to be the killer? Who dies first, and in what ways? And those were like 90% of the films.
Right.
It was funny. Cool. I remember we had like a little newsletter with this fake studio. I even forget what the name was, but we had release schedules planned. Here's going to be the fall releases.
Oh, we would have been friends as kids because I love it. Oh my God.
I mean,
So
kind of nerdy, but fun. But that's, that was, I didn't think you could make a living at it. So I should say that was just childhood having fun. And then when I got to college, and I was applying, I didn't know if I wanted to go to law school, or a lot of my friends were going to law school. And then my dad said, well, do you want to be a lawyer? I said, no. So he said, if you could do anything you wanted, what would it be? I said, I don't know, maybe director. So it wasn't like, oh, I'd wanted to be a director since I was 8. It was more, is this real? Can you actually get paid? Can you make a living at it? And I'm sort of very faith-based in some ways. And I said, okay, well, look, I'll apply to US. That was the only place I applied. And I knew it was hard to get in. I said, if I get in, then it's God's way of saying, yes, go do this. And if I don't, I might be, writing up your deals now. I have no idea.
Right, exactly. I love that though. You followed your heart. I love that your dad asked you what you want to do.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so cool. So you're at USC Film School, and did you just feel like this is where I'm supposed to be? I'm doing what I did as a kid.
Yeah, it was very cool. We had some amazing professors. It was an incredible program. It was before the university built that whole new, I don't know if you've been there now with
I've heard about it. Yeah.
Everything. Oh my gosh. I mean, we were in the old crappy 3-story building. So it was I don't know, Tuscany resort that it is now. Like all
Right.
the kids who go there now are like so spoiled. They're like, I said, you guys should have seen this place back, in the 90s. But it was really fun. It was fun to also be around so many talented people. So like I was in the Peter Stark producing program.
Right.
If I like the names of people that have come out of that place, just even my class or the class above us and below it's insane. Like, 2 people, one is now the head of UTA, one ran Warner Brothers, one ran Sony, one is a huge TV showrunner. 2 are used. 3, sorry, 3.
I'm sure more. There's got to be even more. Yeah.
Directors, producers. it was just like a who's who. Like everybody crushed it.
So cool.
They were
Yeah,
all
that's the
smart.
feeling when you go to film school. Because when I went to Newhouse at Syracuse, and it was the same thing that first day when you're all in the same room for orientation. I looked around, I was like, everyone here loves what I love. Like for the first time, you're surrounded by people who share the passion for filmmaking that you have. You know?
Yeah, and then also I always felt like kind of the underdog because I was like, I think we went around the room, saying where we're from, and it's like, I went to UCLA, which I thought was a good school, but
Yeah.
it was like Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, this, that, I'm like, oh my gosh. Again,
Right.
I was like the public school kid, in the midst of some really super intelligent and bright people. And we
Yeah.
only had, I think it was 22 or 23 kids
Wow.
in that
Amazing.
year. And we did every class together.
Wow.
So we got to know each other really well. Became a family.
That's cool. So that you graduate USC film school, and how do you break into the business? What was your first directing job?
I did. So we had to write our thesis project for there because it was a producing program. Was we had to find a project, um, get a script, option it from someone if we wanted to, or then we had to budget it, do a marketing plan. We basically had to make this like a turnkey movie that was ready to shoot and well thought out. About halfway through us finishing our thesis stuff, or maybe at the start of it, like the last semester, two kids in the class above us, Miles Millar and Al Goff, sold a screenplay to New Line called Mango for like 800 grand.
Wow.
So immediately, like everybody in our class was like, starting to write. Like, this was back, I was driving my Hyundai Excel and we were like, Miles and Al just made it just like blew your mind because you were a poor college kid in debt. And these kids that you see every day just made 800,000. Like we were like 800,000. And it was like a talking orangutan called Mango. And so everybody started writing. And then Larry Turman, who was the director of the program, originally said, you got to find scripts from other people. But we just said, Larry, as producers, we feel strongly that if you can write something better than you think you can find, we should be able to write our own scripts. And he said, you're right. So then we all half of us wrote our own scripts. And that's why I think so many writers came out of there. So
Wait, did that end up being your first movie, the script that you wrote?
No, but so it was my first entree into getting an agent and all that stuff. So I wrote a script called Blue Ground, which was like basically a knockoff of Die Hard in a diamond mine, and it was pretty good. But it was like the producers on my panel afterwards that grade you said, okay, now that it's all graded and everything, what are you doing with the project? I think it's a cool project. Maybe we could try to sell it. So from that script, I got an agent who was just like really new. I mean, it just got promoted from assistant Phil Raskin, who's now a partner at WME, but in Endeavor. And so he repped it. And then we ended up setting it up at Fox. I got Doug Lyman attached. He was attached to direct. I mean, it was crazy.
Funny. I interned for him in New York City, probably around the same time.
Yeah, he loved the mining thing. He had just done Go and
what
was the other one? And Swingers, of
Swingers,
course.
yeah,
like
of course.
Swingers and Go. He had done like Mr. and Mrs. Smith or those big action things, but he always wanted to. And he was a caver, I guess, like a spelunker or something. So he's like, oh, I love this thing with the mine. And anyway,
That's incredible.
We set it up there. That was back in the days, though, where, you could, God, it seems like people were selling pitches every week. Like
I know. I just missed it. It
was like a golden age. You could go like with 3 ideas and they would buy like your C idea in the room, just like, oh, okay. Like it was, I guess it's never easy, but it sure seemed like it. I wouldn't mind going back. Let's put it back.
I would have loved that. I would have loved that. But then, so how did Buying the Cow, which is your first movie that you co-wrote and directed, was that one of those projects that came out?
So then what happened, I had got an agent, and a little bit of money. They just optioned it. They didn't buy the whole script, but it was enough to get me going and get an agent. Oh, and then I wrote a book, a novel that HarperCollins published, and
No
William
way.
called Link, which was like a action adventure Michael Crichton-esque type of novel. And
Yeah.
I got the idea just because books back then, publishing went Hollywood for a little while, like a little window, and they were like, it was like 7-figure advances for first time authors. And
Wow.
it was crazy. So then I'm like, oh, maybe I should try. I didn't even read books, fiction at the time. So then I'm like, okay, let me try to do this. And I came up with a story, and then I wrote 30 pages and gave it to my agents. And they said, oh, this is really good. You should, let me hook you up with a book agent. So I met with a couple of book agents and then picked one, David Vigliano out in New York. And he said, okay, write 80 pages and then like a 30-ish page chapter outline. So I did that, worked with like a line editor for just a little bit. And then the guy goes out and takes the book out, and we had like 8 bidders. It was like a bidding war.
Amazing.
And then it sold for, a lot of money, high 6 figures at the time. And so I had my mango moment.
Totally.
So that allowed me not to have to take a job after school. So I was writing a novel for a year, but I used it to buy a house. Were you ever up at the West Hollywood house?
I don't know. Maybe if that was the same one. Yeah.
That was fun. That was the old bachelor pad. But that was a great view of the city, and so it just allowed me to not stress about grinding until
That's cool.
work. And then, because I knew I always wanted to direct, and I knew that no one was going to let me direct a big $50 million action movie or something. I said, I'm going to have to come up with something low budget enough that I can talk myself into directing. And so a buddy of mine, who also became an author, oddly, Peter Nelson, I pitched him an idea of a story, true story that kind of happened to me. And then we built this whole movie that became Buying the Cow out of it. And we ended up selling it to Destination Films. And then they ended up letting me direct it.
What year did you actually make it? Because I remember it came out a little while after you actually made it.
That was, God, so Van Wilder was when? I think we were shooting in 98. I know we were still editing in 2001.
Right.
So I think it came out in 98. Does that sound right? 99?
Well, I remember the DVD came out in 2002, so I'm not sure. I remember
maybe, yeah, but that was because Destination ended up filing.
Right, but you probably shot it in 98.
And Sony had foreign, so it was weird. It got caught up in bankruptcy.
Right. Exactly. But you were shooting it
99, I would say.
Yeah, so not that long after film school. You were making your first.
It was an amazing story of how it actually got made. And I think it's a lot to do with the power of intention, a lot to do, again, with the power of believing in a higher power is somehow going to help you.
Yeah.
Because I guess the story, and I was friends with the CEO of the company after we did the movie, obviously, and then he told me this story. But so it goes into Destination Films, and the guys love it. So like 3 guy execs love it. A few female execs were like, Buying the Cow, no way. Like, we're not making this movie. Didn't like it. We talked it back and forth, whatever big conference room that they had. And then they eventually just passed. They said, well, if we can't all agree on something, they pass on. So I didn't know this until after they bought it and we were making the movie. And then Brent Baum, who was running the place, was flying to London, and he said, okay, I want a stack of the 10 scripts I'm supposed to read that you guys are considering. So they sent it to him. An assistant mistakenly puts Buying the Cow in the script that in the pile he's supposed to read. So they had already passed. It wasn't supposed to be in that pile. It was some assistant who made a mistake. It goes in the pile. He reads it on the plane to London, calls him the second he gets off and says, oh my God, we not only have to buy this movie, we're making it right now.
Oh my gosh.
And so a movie they had passed on 24 hours earlier ends up then getting a green light. So then I met with my buddy, Brad Janko, who was I think he was the president of production. And I had to pitch myself as the director. And I said, here's how I want to do it. And I want it to feel like you're right with it, whatever mumbo jumbo I was saying at the time. And he said, okay, well, if you can bring someone like Jerry O'Connell, because I asked him like, what kind of cast do we need? He's like, look, you get Jerry O'Connell, we're doing this right now for somebody like him. And then I don't even know how the script got to him, but the day after, Jerry O'Connell's agent calls and says, I don't even know how Jerry got this because it wasn't from Destination. It was from another one of his friends. Maybe it was his angel assistant who somehow, took this out of the, grips of defeat. But he had read the script and said, he really wants to meet you. Would you consider meeting him? And I was like, oh my God, this was literally the guy that Brad just said. His words were, if you can bring me someone like Jerry O'Connell, we can make it.
Wait, so it got to Jerry O'Connell without you?
No, because I asked Brad, I said, did you guys send it? He said, no. So I don't even know how Jerry got it.
Oh, I thought maybe they said get Jerry O'Connell and you guys found it.
No, he said, if you can get someone like Jerry O'Connell, we'll make it. Wow. It wasn't even get Jerry O'Connell. It was like somebody like it. And then, so I don't know. That seems like fate or whatever you want to say, or divine intervention. Or
that's amazing. And what's interesting is things like that come up a lot on this podcast. Like Richard Marx, I interviewed when his book came out, and he told me a story that the hit song that he wrote with Josh Groban accidentally ended up on a CD that was sent to David E. Kelley for Ally McBeal, and he picked it, and it ended up on Ally McBeal, and then it ended up on Josh Groban's album, but it had already been passed on, and same kind of thing.
Oh, wow. Same thing.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's
amazing. Yeah, I just feel like the universe, it's cliche, but works in kind of mysterious ways. But if you have a faith about it and an intention about it, it's like water. You might get blocked 101 ways, but water will find a way to get where it needs to go.
100%.
Sometimes that happens. But anyway, that's how it happened. And truthfully, I made films in film school, but it's not a movie. And so you kind of learn a little bit as you go. You have a lot of talented people around you, and you try to make a movie that you would want to see, basically. Yeah. And so that was the start of at least directing. Yeah, and that's how I found Ryan Reynolds.
Exactly. So I have to say this. So, the Buying the Cow cast. First of all, it's about a guy played by Jerry O'Connell whose friends convinced him to sow his wild oats one last time before he gets married. And Jerry O'Connell's that guy. Bridget Wilson's the girl that he's marrying. Alyssa Milano's their friend. And then there was the newcomer, Ryan Reynolds, who was on Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place maybe at the time. But I feel like you are responsible for making him a movie star, because your relationship with him with Buying the Cow would lead to Van Wilder. So kind of explain your relationship with Ryan Reynolds, and then how you both got your big breaks on the same movie, Van Wilder.
Yeah, working on Buying the Cow, I just remember he was just so good. They were all good. Our cast was amazing. And so what ended up happening was my good friend Andrew Panay, who I've done a few movies with. Van Wilder was one. He was a producer of Wedding Crashers, just an amazing guy, a super talented creative producer. So he had sent me a script that I got sent 5 times, and I was like, I don't know. But then he sent it to me himself, and it was basically the script for Van Wilder. And so I read it again, and I said, I don't know, there's something to this. I said, it's a little bit, it was raunchy. You could never make this movie. Okay.
Right.
Sure. But there was something very funny about it. And I thought I see movies in weird ways. So I said, this is basically It's a Wonderful Life. Except raunchy R-rated. It's about a guy who does everything for everybody else, who gets in trouble. And then the people that he's helped along the way rally to his aid and help him. So I said, I like that. And then I told him, I said, look, I'd be down as long as the financiers will approve Ryan Reynolds.
Amazing.
I just worked with on Buying the Cow. And at the time, Tara Reid, who was the female lead, was a huge star. So coming right off American Pie. So she was kind of the name.
Exactly.
And then, Ryan, they said, well, does he have foreign? He was really good on the show, but I don't think audiences knew him in the movie. And then I sent Panay. Do you remember the scene where he's crawling out of the window and all that stuff?
Yeah.
And then in that 5-minute clip of Ryan being Ryan and being amazing. And And he was like, oh my God. And then he showed it to the German financiers and all this stuff. And they're like, he's the dude. So that was for me. I said, if you can get Ryan, then I'll do it, because I said, you guys might not know of him now, but you will, because he's going to be a giant movie star, which he ended up being.
Yeah, I feel like if without Van Wilder, he might not be Deadpool. He might not be Free Guy. You anointed him as this.
You never know. I think there was that's like the water. He's like movie star water,
right?
I think no matter what, that kid, now he's an adult, but he was younger than me, so I didn't know that. He was going to make it no matter what. Like, and in some ways, I feel like because of the success of Van Wilder, like we couldn't go out on the streets. Like we would walk, or like, people are like, Van, and everybody's trying to buy shots for him. Or I think because he was a title character, it came with a lot of baggage, and he was really worried about like getting typecast as, that type of character, I guess.
Yeah.
So then he started really doing a lot of like more dramatic stuff or action stuff, or just really weird choices at the time, because truthfully, he could have blown up even faster if he just went full comedy mode.
Totally.
But I think there was a method to what he was doing, and I think it was smart and it worked. And then he could still be the great, Ryan Reynolds / Van, because Ryan brought Ryan into Van. So he wasn't playing Van.
Right.
Van, if that makes sense, Van was Ryan Reynolds.
Exactly. It was the perfect.
And that's why when people go, oh my God, he's like Van Wilder in Deadpool, I was like, well, because it's Ryan. Yeah. So Ryan came into Van, and then that was what Van was. And so, yeah, Ryan going into Deadpool is what Deadpool was.
It's funny. I knew who Ryan Reynolds was before Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place, because he was on a show called 15 on Nickelodeon that I watched when I was a kid. It was like a teen show, and it was actually a Canadian show that like Nickelodeon in America repurposed. But I watched 15, and he was the kid from 15. So when he became a big movie star, I was like, I know that guy.
Yeah, I remember that show he was telling me about. There was someone else on it with him, like, forget who it was, but
I don't know. There were a bunch of people. I know I have to go back and check out where they ended up. But I remember with Van Wilder, it was a big deal at the time because it wasn't originally a National Lampoon movie, right? They came on later. So I remember the title changed. It was like Van Wilder Party Liaison, but then by the time it was released, it was National Lampoon's Van Wilder, which I think gave it a certain cachet, like, Animal House, which interestingly enough, Tim Matheson plays Vance Wilder Sr., Van Wilder's dad. So it was kind of this amazing Animal House connection.
That wasn't, like I said, we shot the movie, it was finished.
Yeah.
We didn't know we were making a National Lampoon movie.
Right. So
after they were, I'll tell you, this is a true story. So we finished the movie, and what is Lionsgate now is Artisan, but Lionsgate now was testing it down in Orange at a big one of those big stadium seating things with 300 people. So they screen the movie, and it tests huge, like 94. They're like, all the execs are like, now it's still not National Lampoon. So because they were negotiating with them, and then in the audience afterwards, and then on the cards, they said, do you guys like the idea of National Lampoon? What does that mean? Because they didn't think National Lampoon meant anything to younger people at the time.
It did.
But all of them were like, yes, National Lampoon. And they're, what does that mean to you? Comedy classic. A lot of people said Chevy Chase. Comedy classic. Stamp of, So anyway, after that screening, they realized, hey, there's a lot of value in Lampoon. And then they ended up, closing the deal and basically putting that, moniker on it.
That must have been a huge stamp of approval for you as the director.
Yeah, and I got to be really good friends with the Lampoon guys.
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, for me, I watched National Lampoon.
It was cast in the movie before we were Lampoon, so that wasn't even
it's amazing.
It wasn't even a nod, really. It was just, happened to work out.
Worked out perfectly. Yeah. I mean, growing up, National Lampoon's Vacation, the first one, I used to watch every day growing up. And then, like, the Christmas Vacation movie, obviously. And, National Lampoon just became this brand that you knew was going to be hilarious. And you're making a movie about a, 7-year senior in college. And so it just worked. It just felt like a new Animal House for the next generation. I was a senior in college in 2002 when it came out, and so it was perfect for me. I just remember seeing it opening weekend and laughing. Everyone had a great time. And so for you, it became kind of a calling card that you were this big comedy director, which I think was
Yeah, no, that was great. And Ryan says Chevy Chase was one of his all-time favorites, so he
that's
kind of
great.
brought comedy on
Yeah,
him. So in some ways, it came full circle too.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
also
love those movies.
yeah, Cal Penn is in the movie too. He plays Taj. That was the first time I remember seeing him. He's from Freehold, New Jersey, which is like the town next to me in Jersey. But in his new book, You Can't Be Serious, he credits Van Wilder with getting Harold and Kumar. Like he never would have gotten it without Van Wilder. And so that was his big break too. So it's amazing that this movie put so many people on the
Oh
map.
yeah. Well, so Sophia Bush, I think that was one of her first.
Oh,
Uh,
probably. Yeah.
like there's so many, and this is a really, if you want to go deep in the references,
Okay.
Chris Paul, not Chris Paul. Oh God, who played the Aaron Paul
Oh, Aaron Paul. Yeah, of course.
is in the movie too. So,
Yes.
so it was like now he was kind of already
No,
semi.
not yet. No, not until Breaking Bad.
Yeah, not yet. He hadn't done Breaking Bad yet, but there was a lot of them in that movie, and it was nice to see them all take off like that. I thought that was cool.
Exactly. Yeah, the movie was a big hit. It made like $40 million off just a $5 million budget. And then I think when it came out on DVD, it became like
Oh
this
yeah,
cult hit.
it crushed on DVD. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely got it the day it came out on DVD. So did the success of Van Wilder lead to your next jobs? Because your next movie in 2007 was a very big comedy called Wild Hogs. So had that kind of put you on the map as this comedy director?
A little bit, especially when it caught on as the cult type stuff, the cult
Yeah.
styles. And then that movie, I was on another movie at Disney that didn't end up going, but then the script came in and it was very funny. And I had just happened to, I mean, how many motorcycle scripts come into Disney that get bought?
Exactly.
That I'm actually there attached to something. Again, I don't know what the odds are. So,
Serendipity everywhere.
and when I was in college, my dad and I used to buy Harleys out here in the States, and then we'd ship them to Europe, and then we'd drive them around for 3 weeks and then sell them for like triple what we bought them for, and it paid for the whole trip.
Wow.
So I'd done that. My dad took the trip like the Wild Hogs before when
No way.
they bought Harleys in from the factory in Milwaukee, and then drove them all the way across the United States back home.
Wow.
One was a minister, one was a lawyer, one was, so that helped me get that job because I knew motorcycle culture. I knew Harleys. I knew the allure of that. I knew my dad's midlife crisis. I knew, sort of all of that. And then, yeah, that basically helped kick that one off.
That's so amazing looking back that you can see all these things in your life that led to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, that was this biker road comedy with an all-star cast. John Travolta, Tim Allen, Martin Lawrence, William H. Macy, Ray Liotta, Marissa Tomei, even Peter Fonda. Some of the biggest movie stars in the world all together in the same movie. So we know what drew you to the project is you love motorcycles. But talk about that cast. Like when they told you that, John Travolta, who I'm sure you grew up watching, was going to be in the movie or wanted to be in the movie. What was that like when you first met
Well,
with him?
when I came on it was just Tim was the only person that was even circling it.
Wow.
So the pitch was, and I actually made this pitch to Disney because I said, look, here's my take on this idea. It's a super funny script. I said, but let's face it, like four guys, midlife crisis, drive motorcycles across country. I said, that could be Miramax movie. Like,
Yeah.
how do we make it an event movie? And the only way for me that I pitched them was to make the event movie is who are the four guys on the one sheet and why is this like, oh my gosh, what is this? I have to see it.
Yep.
So I basically pitched them again on upcasting.
Yep.
So Tim was just used to basically, starring and opening in some huge movies. He had the biggest show, I think, in the world at the time in Home Improvement. And so I just said, well, let's surround Tim with like equally great people. So I said, what if we try to go get Travolta? Like, he was great in all this stuff. So I flew to New York with Brian Robbins, the producer at the time. Met him at like 2 a.m. and then we got him, and then I pitched the studio on. I think it was originally like a white plumber, and I said, you know what? Like, there's such a big African American motorcycle culture, and I just do this basically inherently in all my movies. I try to cast super diverse before it was like, you know,
the thing to do.
And so I said, why don't we make an African American? I think it makes it more interesting. It's a huge culture. So they said, okay, who would you want? And I said, well, if we could get somebody like Martin Lawrence. And then I think that floated out. And then the next day, UTA called me and said, look, Martin's in if he can get what the other guys are getting or whatever, like he's in. And then we got Martin. And then on the Macy character, that was like the biggest, the most ungrounded part, I guess, in my mind, like kind of the most cartoony thing. And so I said, we need to like cast someone who's like a legit actor, like to sort of juxtapose against how naive this one character is.
Yeah.
And so I said, let's try to get Bill Macy. And so he was on the fence. I remember we were in New Mexico, and they said, well, he wants to meet in LA. So I was going to fly back, but I knew he was kind of on the fence and I'd have to sell him a little bit. And then we met at the chateau, and
nice.
He was talking. He's like, well, I'll tell you, I'm here because my wife basically was like, you have to make this movie. Like, she read it too. She's like, you just have to. And he says, but I just don't understand this guy that much. Like, he's like such a buffoon. Like, you know, he's so over the top. And I said, here's what I look at it through this lens. What if he's like, instead of just being a buffoon, like an innocent, what if he's the most innocent person in the world? Like the most naive person in the world. And that just that one word, like an innocent, he said it to himself like 3 or 4 times. And he's like, I get it. And then he was like on board. But it was great because he had just come off some, you know, like whatever mammoth, you know, movies at the time. And then he was just going for it with like balls out funny comedy. But it was so amazing to put all those guys together. And then I remember trying to get Ray Liotta, because I said, look, if we don't have a guy that can actually terrify these guys, I'm not sure it will work.
Right.
And that's why I was pitching Ray Liotta so hard. And then, you know, got him and actually kept him away from meeting the guys until the first scene that they were together.
Smart.
So the 4 of them had worked for a few days together, you know, and they were like, you know, they goof around and, you know, have fun. And then Ray comes up in the scene at the bar, you know, and he's like a lot of that scene at the bar, you're watching like almost like real life play out.
Wow.
Because he's like, what's fucking wrong with these guys? Like, you know, he just want to come in and like work, and, you know, they're like, and the guys were like, holy shit. Like, what is, you know, Ray was so intense. And then it was great because they're like, shut up, do your line, you know, and he's like, it was insane. So that scene worked really good. But
that's incredible.
Behind the scenes, there was a lot of like them feeling like, oh my God, what did we just bring into this family?
Right.
Being like, what did I just step into?
But it worked.
And they ended up having a great time. Everybody loved each other.
It seems like you've always gotten your first choice for every actor, for every role in anything so far in the stories.
Well, I would say it's funny. So the right choice, I would say, not necessarily the first choice, the right choice. On that movie, it was John that I wanted, Martin and all those guys. So we did get those guys. But I have been on movies where you don't get your first choice, thankfully, but you get the right choice. Nice. Somehow the universe always goes, oh my God, like, thank God we got that person.
Yeah.
I think that's almost like, you know, a golden, like most directors or everybody will just tell you, oh, so-and-so was supposed to do this movie, and then we got this person. And I can't imagine a movie ever being made if it wasn't that person.
Right. It's the movie gods, like as they
Yeah,
say.
yeah, a little bit for sure that goes on.
Were you a John Travolta fan growing up? Like Welcome Back, Kotter, or Grease,
I
or
was. I
Saturday
loved
Night
Welcome Back,
Fever?
Kotter. I loved him in that. My dad actually in the 70s had a perm, kind of looked like Gabe Kaplan in a way.
Wow.
So so we would watch that show all the time, but I just remember like people would come up and ask for my dad's autograph all the time. And I'm like,
No way.
huh. And he would sign it. Like,
Wait,
what kind of guy does that? He's a
that happened to
psychologist.
me. That happened to me as a kid with Fred Savage from the Wonder Years. People would ask me for his autograph.
Yeah, well, my dad would just sign it.
Right. I would say I'm not Fred Savage.
Like Potter. He wouldn't sign Gabe Kaplan. He signed
Oh,
it.
no way.
I'm like, why don't you just tell him you're not there? He's like, it's fun. I don't want to know that. I'm
It
like,
is fun.
yeah, I grew up with him. And then, of course, just Grease was like such a seminal part of, young adulthood and childhood. And
Saturday
he's
Night
like the
Fever.
biggest star of the world a few times.
Exactly. Well, that's what's so interesting is
After Grease and Urban Cowboy,
right.
man, no one bigger.
Yeah,
No one bigger.
Saturday Night Fever is iconic. And I for me, actually, it's funny. So I was like 9 when Look Who's Talking came out. And I remember I saw it opening weekend and I loved Kirstie Alley from Cheers. And something about Look Who's Talking, it became my favorite movie. And when it came out on VHS, it's another one that I just watched every single day. I was trying to break like a Guinness World Record of like, can I watch this on VHS every single day for months? So for me, John Travolta was Look Who's Talking. And then all of a sudden, they make Look Who's Talking 1, 2, 3. And then the next year he does Pulp Fiction. And so in 94, so it was like the world got on board and I was like, hey, I've already been a John Travolta fan. And after Pulp Fiction, it was just hit after hit after hit.
Oh, yeah,
And Wild Hogs, I think, was his biggest at box office, one of.
I think it was. It was actually, I might be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. It was every one of those actors' biggest opening.
I'm sure. Yeah, because it was huge. It was $40 million opening weekend.
Yeah. And it was funny because it was tracking at 18. I remember being really bummed at like 18 because the movie tested huge too. Like I knew it was going to be a hit because we've already seen it with audiences, but then they said 18. I'm like, well, maybe they're just not going to be on board. They're going to find it like Van Wilder later.
Right.
And it was one of those weekends where it was like underestimating Friday afternoon. And then it was like they revised the numbers up on Friday night. And then by Saturday morning, it was 30% above what they thought. And then it just kept going. It was like a wave. And you didn't think it could go up anymore. When they were talking about like 32, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It just kept going and going and going.
Yeah, 40 million opening weekend, and then it ended up with like 255 million worldwide, which is huge. So what does that feel like for you? Because do you ever still feel like that kid who was 8 years old making home movies? Like, I can't believe I have the #1 movie in the world.
Yeah, no, it always feels great. Yeah, it does feel great to win, and it's so much work goes into it, and it's so hard. And so I'm generally like a not so up and not so down, which keeps me like, that's just how I go. So things that are devastating, I find a way to just make them bad, or like, wow, you're doing pretty good. And then I don't get too high on the highs, but it absolutely did feel good. That was the closest time where I could see myself like drifting away into like, oh my God, every movie is going to come out and do like this. And,
yeah.
Yes, but they don't come out like that all the time. A lot. It's date timing. I don't know why that movie struck a chord at the time it did.
Exactly.
I'm not sure we can make that movie now either, but it's like John Hughes movies,
right.
You watch some of those and you're like, whoa.
Right. They basically capture a moment in time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a time capsule. So you and John Travolta became good friends on Wild Hogs, and you would reunite a few years later in 2009 for Old Dogs. That movie starred John Travolta and Robin Williams, who's one of my favorite actors of all time. He's now one of my nephew's favorite actors of all time because we watched Mrs. Doubtfire the best, and won an Oscar for Good Will Hunting. He did comedy, drama, the genie in Aladdin. I mean, literally did everything. I could go on forever just about Robin Williams. I'm friends with his daughter Zelda Williams. She's a writer, but he's like a legend. I mean, going back to Mork and Mindy on TV when we were kids. So you got to tell me, what is it like working with Robin Williams? Because does he stick to the script? Do you have to just let him go and improv? What is that experience like?
Well, it was amazing. So just like you, I was a total fanboy,
Yeah.
from all those movies. So when you're like, oh my God, I'm working with Travolta and Robin Williams.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. So you're like, this is so amazing. And he's so, first of all, he's such a nice guy to the crew and everybody. Like,
Hmm.
just one of those guys, like buys presents for people, takes people, if they need a flight. He's just like a really down to earth, great dude. So he would, trying to remember on that movie, he would definitely always at least get the script. So
Yeah.
he honored words that, people wrote, obviously, which got everybody interested in doing it.
Yeah.
But then he would try a bunch of stuff. So yeah, I'm a big improv guy anyway. So I always try to get what's on the page because, probably we've agonized over every sentence for months, right? So there's a reason the wording is the wording. But then after we get that, then I generally let actors try whatever they want. And so him and John were pretty good ad-libbing. And then even guys like Dax Shepard or something could come in and ad-lib with both him and Robin, and go to kind of toe to toe with them, which was nice to see. So yeah, he was just great. But like Robin does, he just breathes more life into whatever's there.
Right. Makes it funnier.
And I don't even know if it's underrated because obviously he's an Academy Award winning actor, so I don't think it's underrated. But he's got such an equally powerful, straight side that can play drama and real emotion and everything like that. So
exactly,
as crazy as the comedy side gets, I found him equally able to turn the switch on the other end and play super real, super emotional. I actually just keep telling him, I just found it so unique. The guy could throw like a switch and project like pain, or sadness or something so authentically. It was weird. It's not like movie sad. It was like you could just flick it and it was just like radiating almost. I don't know. So all the different kind of sad moments in it are where it was a really heartfelt thing. That was nice to have somebody who's so funny, but who also could go to those places.
I mean, he's so good at both. That's what's incredible.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just a legend. And also in the movie, Kelly Preston, who was married to John Travolta in real life, she sadly passed away, like Robin Williams, which was upsetting. I loved her ever since Twins. Their daughter, Ella Travolta, played her daughter in the movie. Lori Loughlin, who's a friend of mine, Seth Green, Rita Wilson, Bernie Mac, Matt Dillon, Amy Sedaris, Anne Margaret, and then also, like you said, Dax Shepard, Justin Long, Luis Guzman. Again, a stacked cast, which I love. So I think, cast as many people as you can who want to do the movie. When you have John Travolta and Robin Williams, I would think everyone else wants to come play.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, for sure. That definitely helps. And then what we would do generally is like, if we try to get, like say like Justin or any of these people, then they want a little more to do. So then what ends up happening is the scenes get better because you're writing up stuff. That's why I think it's so cool to, put like Matt Dillon was so funny in that movie to me.
He's so good.
And Justin was hilarious. Dax and Luis were hilarious.
Yeah.
Everybody, Rita, and then poor Kelly. Ella was amazing.
Yeah.
So it was just, that was a really, really fun cast, which we shot in Connecticut, not New York.
Right.
But we did shoot, that was one of the films that we shot, I think 2 weeks in New York and then the rest in.
Right. That seemed like a really fun movie to make, an amazing cast. I mean, I don't even know how you edited it with all like the improv and Robin Williams, like how you picked the best take. It must be.
Oh yeah, no, there was so much stuff he did. I mean, it's just like, and by the way, something different every time too.
Right.
Like he won't run out of stuff.
Ever. Yeah. Amazing. How cool that you got to work with him.
Yeah.
and that cast. So cool. And another thing I have to mention, a year after that, 2010, you created a TV show called Glory Days, DAZE, a show about college in the 80s, which, you know, you knew something about the 80s and 90s, and really fun show on TBS. I didn't even know you yet, but I watched it the year before I met you because Juliana Guil was in it, and she was in my short film Closing Time. So I watched it because she was on it, and also in the cast, Kelly Blatz, Matt Bush, Hartley Sawyer, Drew Seeley, Tim Meadows, another SNL guy, was the professor. You directed the pilot, co-wrote the script, created the show. What was that like to create a TV show? And again, college, Van Wilder, your wheelhouse.
It was amazing. That's actually was the hardest thing I had to do was show run a show and then also direct episodes and stuff at the same time.
Right.
But it was also probably the most rewarding. It started because after Wild Hogs, a friend of mine married a guy named Michael Wright, who had basically blown up TBS and TNT into like the best, most watched cable network ever.
Right.
And so we got to be friends because he married one of my friends. And then so we had a meeting, and he's like, "I'd love to figure out a TV show to do with you." And we just started talking. He went to UCLA too. And I was telling him all these stories about like, oh, the glory days. And then we were like, da, 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 da. And then he's like, "Why don't you just do that show?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, right? You know, my life in the 80s at UCLA, basically." He's like, "Yeah." So I was like, "Are you kidding? Like, this is like insane." And so that's what we did. It was basically what I felt it was like to be in college in the 80s in my fraternity, guys rushing. I didn't even change some of the names. So a lot of my fraternity, yeah, like Turbo is Turbo, you know, like they're all there. The beast that was in that pilot episode was something that my initiation class built, like as a drinking contest with the other class.
It's so cool.
So we did that basically as authentic as it was. It was so cool. He was a big believer in music because he's also a super talented musician. And so he said, "Yeah, put in 6 or 8 original songs."
Wow.
Insane. So I think we had the highest. Warner Brothers always used to tell me, because they were the studio, they said, "You know, you have the highest budgeted music of any show we've ever done." But it's because Michael was such an advocate for doing it and being authentic to the time of music. And
yeah,
so we
exactly.
had six 80s songs in it. The cast was incredible. We used a lot of the Chris Getz troupe, you know, John Michael Higgins.
Right. It had to feel like the 80s. That's why.
Brad Garrett was the mom. Sherry O'Terry. Oh, sorry. Brad Garrett was dad, and Sherry O'Terry was the mom, which was funny in itself because he's like a huge guy, right? Yeah. Like 6'6" or 6'7" or something, and Sherry's like 5. But
yeah. So cool.
Yeah, that was a fun show. It almost got a second season. It probably should have. I think. You know, nowadays everybody would love the ratings it was getting.
Exactly.
That was a really fun time.
Well, that's a show people should find because it takes place in the 80s. It's timeless too. So you could watch it now and still enjoy it. It's a period piece of that time.
Yeah. So even though I get probably one email every 3 or 4 months or something saying, "Hey, where can I find Glory Days? I can't find it."
Oh, wow.
It was on something streaming for a second, and then it's not. And I think it has something to do with the music budget.
Right.
The deals that we did on there were like 1-play deals, or like it was some weird thing that if they redid it, they'd have to go in and replace a lot of the music. They would not be able to do it. I think maybe that's held up. I keep hoping that it'll go on HBO Max someday.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just not. I don't even know how to find it.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, maybe they'll have to change the music, but the music was authentic to the 80s. The costumes were really 80s. I really liked that show. That was a fun show. And that was before I met you, and I was watching that show. And so when I met you and you said you created Glory Days, I was like, I love that show. It ran for 1 season on TBS, 10 episodes. People should try to find it if they can. Maybe
try to find it. Write a letter to Warner.
Yeah.
Put the first season out.
Exactly. And then you directed another TV show in 2014, Kirby Buckets, on Disney XD. Another thing I watched with my nephew. We like that show a lot, about a kid, Kirby, who wants to be an animator like his idol. He interacts with the cartoon characters that he creates. And so that was sort of, you know, your first foray into this hybrid animated live action world that would lead to Alvin and the Chipmunks and Clifford. So it's cool how everything you do and take on, whatever you're drawn to in the moment serves you later on your next projects, which I find so interesting.
Yeah, a little bit. That's the yeah, it does. It actually opens doors.
Yeah.
What I realized before Alvin was that this was when foreign started to get a bigger piece of the pie and domestic started shrinking.
Right.
So for our American comedies weren't selling as well overseas generally, and so they were making less of them. So it was a comedy director. It was a very conscious choice to say, I need to go do a live action CGI movie, family, because they'll keep making those till the dawn of time.
Exactly.
But if I don't do that sort of live action CGI hybrid big budget film, it's going to be slim pickings on getting comedies made.
Yeah. Although streamers are helping bring back comedy.
I think are helping, but you still don't see them. You still, even on the streamers, you still don't see a lot of straight comedies with no CGI or anything.
Right.
You know, comedy series, yes, but comedy movies, I mean, the last one I can think are like Vacation Friends.
Right. But see, Hulu released Vacation Friends, and then immediately after that weekend, that Monday, they announced a sequel. So there is something to like in the streamer world. Like if it gets a lot of views that weekend, you can keep making them for the streamer.
Yeah, for sure. Well, believe me, I would love to keep making movies for the streamer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Worry about box office, you know.
Right.
If the numbers aren't great, they don't say anything. If they are, they order a sequel.
Right.
You know?
It's kind of nice for the artist.
Like, yeah. X amount of box office.
Exactly. But so 2015, you did Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Road Chip, which was the fourth Alvin and the Chipmunks movie in the film franchise. I remember visiting you on the Fox lot when you were doing the special effects. I had a meeting there and I stopped in and I saw the making of the Chipmunks like being added, which was so cool. And so it's funny, because now you're doing Clifford, which has to be much bigger than everybody. That movie, you had these chipmunks that were much smaller than everybody. It was almost the opposite.
It was exactly the opposite, but dealing with the same problem of scale.
Right.
So, people don't understand, let's say with the chipmunks, right? If the lead characters are like 11 inches, that makes a human being, like a normal sized human being, like Attack of the 60-foot woman. Right. It's literally, you're shooting a giant with this.
Yeah.
So it's easy to forget, like, oh my gosh, how do you guys do that? So for me, I always wanted to treat them a little bit more like stars. So I said, I never want to shoot like down at them or into the ground, because I never felt like those shots looked good anyway. So we've always tried to get them up on stuff and put them at eye level and cover them where, we could get. And Weta was doing the visual effects. So I told him, these things have to hold up even if we're like super tight. Like I want to go like full movie star tight on the eyes and all the rest of it. And so they did a great job doing that. So that was an issue scale wise. And then on Clifford, it was the exact opposite, because now the humans were small.
Right.
Clifford was huge.
But you know what? I watched the original Alvin and the Chipmunks cartoon. Like I remember coming home from school and watching the original, and they always were up on stuff. Like they would jump up on the counter in the kitchen to talk to Dave Seville. So it made sense that they would.
You never want to have them just like on the floor all the time talking up to people. Because
I don't think they were. Yeah, I think they got to the level.
Never looked good anyway. But that was definitely one of the creative challenges that all the people who made the movies had to deal with, which was, how are we going to fit this little creature in with these giant people?
Yeah. And then by your movie, weren't they even looking more realistic than they had in the previous?
Yeah, they were a little more realistic. They were, again, it was just a function of CGI getting better and what they could do. And Weta obviously is like a Tiffany shop. So we decided to just press a little bit more of the realistic look.
It worked. And like that's another iconic movie for you to take on. Alvin and the Chipmunks, another thing that everybody grew up with. Another great cast that you worked with that I have to mention. Jason Lee as Dave Seville, Kimberly Williams as his girlfriend Samantha. I loved her since Father of the Bride. Just
love her, and a sweetheart person too.
She seems so nice. I never met her, but one of my all-time favorites. the voices of Alvin, Simon, and Theodore were Justin Long, Matthew Gray Gubler, and Jesse McCartney. And then the voices of Brittany, Jeanette, and Eleanor were Christina Applegate, Anna Faris, and Kaylee Cuoco. So even your voices are all stars.
Yeah, I know. And the guys and girls, but they were all just like so talented, and that was great because we've already shot the movie, and then we're just you get to work with these super talented actors doing all the voices, and they could come up with stuff too. That was very fun.
Yeah.
But to a person, they were just all great people. And so what's nice is people don't really go, like on a movie that I'm doing now, like a name will come up, let's say Kaylee Cuoco or whatever, like, oh, I've worked with her, but you don't know that I've worked with her.
Right.
Voice of a chipmunk, but I know her. I know she's an amazing actress and she's a super nice person. Same with all the other ones. So
yeah, I feel like you've worked with really nice people, and you're a nice person, so it works. It all goes together. It's cool that you've gotten to live that childhood dream and surround yourself with these people maybe you grew up admiring, or you admire their work now. And Tony Hale, like you said, was the villain in that movie too. So you obviously enjoyed working together. So you worked together again in Clifford. Like, you seem like the kind of person who, when you like working with someone, you bring them along. As many movies as you can. And also Bella Thorne was in that. She played a pop star named Ashley Gray. That was like one of her big movie breaks. So you kind of broke her, like Ryan Reynolds back in the day. And not only was it this live action CGI hybrid, but it was also kind of a musical. They do a lot of musical performances. There's a whole concert. I feel like you really took on this big family film / CGI hybrid / musical with that.
Yeah. Well, that I always try to so I leaned into the musical part because, so I was like, this might be the only chance. So we got to elevate every dance sequence and make it amazing. So we got Rich and Tone with the choreographers they do all of Madonna stuff. They're just really, really great choreographers. Yeah. And so I said, when we did the Louisiana thing, we got to blow this out. We got to just make this so unexpected that it's this, I guess, vibrant or detailed. So it was so much fun to me. I love shooting music on camera.
You'll do another musical probably at some point.
Yeah, I hope so. I've been doing a lot dancing stuff and commercials and stuff, and it's always my favorite.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, that was a really fun movie. I remember another one. I took my nephew to the theater opening weekend. We loved it, and that was another huge crowd pleaser at the box office. 234 million worldwide at the box office, even more than the third movie had done. You're just really good at what you do. I think that's what we've learned. You deliver every time, and what's cool is you're not someone who brags about it. You wouldn't even know. You don't talk about it, but if you look at your track record, it's very solid, and you've generated a lot of money at the box office.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I have my favorites, my favorite directors who I feel like are on a completely different level. But the only thing I could say is I kind of feel like I know the audience, what audience is like, and then what I like. And it's not always, prestige. It's what I grew up with, which were just great movies that you love to watch,
Exactly. Yeah, I think you definitely
aren't pretentious or don't pretend to be something they're not. So yeah, I appreciate that. That's
but I think you can also do Oscar movies down the line that you definitely.
I think what, it's funny. I don't know. You never know with award stuff. But I do think I can do that type of movie. In fact, I know I can because I used to make them in film school. It's just, it's like anything. You do one live action CG movie, then the other scripts come. And I'm just a yes guy because I like to work. So, it's not, I'm not the guy that goes, no, I'm holding out for, the next, Nomadland. Or,
exactly. But also Nomadland is a big risk because they didn't know that was going to be as well received, as it was. So
it's a really good movie too. I watched it on the plane going to and from someplace. Yeah. But I think I have it in me. I think I'll probably do a drama or two, which will be very weird with people. Hopefully it doesn't have an animal name in it.
Well,
But
maybe it will.
I think, yeah, maybe it will. You know,
Nick
who
Cage
knows?
just did a drama called Pig.
I just watched it on the plane.
Right, so
I
maybe
just watched it on the plane coming back from New
look
York.
for an Oscar-worthy drama with an animal in the title, and then you'll know
Right, so you
what's the
can do
one.
it.
Yeah, you can.
He'll definitely, I think, get nominated for that too.
Right, exactly.
He was really good at it.
But I mean, listen, like awards and those things are one thing, but there's something to be said for creating these movies that, like you said, Clifford could be this annual timeless classic that people keep coming back to, and entertaining the world is as important with these big mainstream comedies and family films as the award movies. We need all of it, and you do a great job, and I think that's why you keep getting the movies that you do, and you've worked so consistently, and I that now brings us full circle to Clifford, November 2021, where we're at right now. Like I said, as of November 10th, it's playing in theaters everywhere and on Paramount Plus. Big hit with audiences and children of all ages. So I have to ask, what is next besides a Clifford sequel for Walt Becker?
I think, well, it could be a couple of things. The things that are closest, well, there's a few things in development. There's a script called Disrupted that I really like. No animal name in the title.
No name. Yeah, you might have to change it.
Which is good. That's a plus. It's independently financed, which I haven't done independently financed movie maybe since Van Wilder, to be honest. Which was
probably.
It was like hybrid independent finance.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to that. I love the producing partners, and it's based on a true story about a guy who worked at Newsweek magazine. It was kind of like that dinosaur dude that and the office gets emptier and emptier each year as magazines are going out of stock.
Yeah.
A friend of his who worked in venture capital, this lady, said, "You got to, oh my God, just leave that job. You go work at this startup called, I forget what it's called. It's amazing." And da-da-da. So he quits his Newsweek job. And this is based on his book. And shows up and bets the farm, like takes all the stocks options, not much pay. I'm just betting this thing is going to blow up. Shows up, and he basically steps into a startup where he goes, "Oh my God, we're not even selling a product. I don't even know what this company's doing." It was so it's pretty funny, and it's his sort of descent into madness a little bit with like trying to make something of it. So it deals with ageism a little bit. It deals with startup culture. It deals with cult of personality with some of these internet founders or startup founders. And it deals with, how people get really wealthy on startups and a lot of people get screwed. It's just a cool, what it feels like? It's like a Adam McKay version.
Yeah. Or I was going to say Alexander Payne even.
Yeah, like it's Adam McKay, Alexander Payne. It's like when McKay does, or God, who else does it now? God, he's a great director. But then he started doing all these political movies, which have been really great and funny.
Adam McKay, that's him.
Oh, him. But there's another one. It's not just Alexander Payne, Adam McKay, and why am I blanking on his name?
I thought Adam McKay, he did like Don't Look Up. And
no, it is. There's another guy that has been doing these really well. But anyway, so it's like my version of an Adam McKay social satire.
That's so cool.
That's probably closest to going. Yeah.
And do you have a cast yet or not yet?
No, we'll just start casting probably after, the holiday, I guess.
Yeah. You can maybe go back to Travolta or one of your Wild Hogs actors. And
there's a couple guys on the list that I've worked with.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be I think that's a fun one. It's independent, it's smaller budget.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's closest to going.
That's cool. That'll be awesome. And then obviously a Clifford sequel. And I hope we find someone to work on together.
We will.
Soon. It's 10 years in the making.
Maybe 10 years, it's time to get the pool party launched again. You never know.
I don't know about the pool party, but definitely a movie. I mean,
get the primetime screenings going again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've told you about this personally. I haven't talked about it on the podcast yet, but I got the rights to my favorite books from when I was a kid, the Hobie Hansen books by Amy Gilson. Right. And so I'm trying to do the same kind of thing you guys did with Clifford and take these, books from your childhood and make them come to life. So that could
Right.
be something we make happen at some point.
I love it.
Yeah, it would be awesome. And so before we go, I always like to ask my guests, what advice do you have for someone who dreams of having a career like yours?
Okay. What advice? Um, I think persistence is probably a huge one. Um, don't let, because I was discouraged from getting into the business by many people that were in the business. So keep a great sense of naivete. So stick to the dreamer in you and don't let the cynic inside you or the cynics around you tell you it's too hard. You'll never be able to do it. The market's saturated. You're not this, or you're not that, or you need to know someone, or, you know, so that's first thing is just listening to the dreamer in you and don't let people knock it out of you. Second thing I would say is don't wait for people to create the opportunity. Just go out and do it. So if you're having to shoot movies on your iPhone, go do it. Or I always tell this with actors. I said the best skill that you could learn is write. You can write yourself into jobs. There's so many actors that are now showrunners and you know, they're in stuff. So I would say learn to write would be a big one because you can write your own ticket literally if you become good at that. That takes a long time to become good, but you don't need anybody to give you money to write a great script. You just need a computer. So I tell people learn to write, and there's a lot of books that can teach you to do that. And it's just quantity, right. And then, yeah, I think that's it. It's just believe, and then just, you know, don't let people unmanifest your dreams, you know, just keep plugging through and being positive about it, I guess would be my thing. And then the last piece of advice for anybody starting out again is start investing whatever money you have right now. It could be $100, it could be $1,000, but don't keep it in a bank account, or like if you have a scholarship fund that you haven't used that your parents gave you when you were a kid and it's just sitting in a mutual fund, take it out of that and invest in really amazing securities, or even just a straight index fund of the market. Because most people, I ask this all the time, like I was such a wimp about investing and oh my God, I could lose this money. But man, if I had done that in my 20s all the way through, it's just, you have to. So that's my financial advice for people.
No, that's a lot of really good advice.
Yeah, but that's it basically.
Yeah.
Oh, and lastly, because it's definitely helped in my life, be great and nice to everybody, from movie stars to PAs to whatever, because 90% of the jobs that I've gotten, like the one, let's say with Clifford, came from a friend. So you build relationships over time, and those are the relationships that will save you, pull you out when your career is just here. I can't tell you how many times it's like I've gotten work because I was just nice, or somebody that I was nice to is now my boss. So that's the other thing, is just be kind to everybody. It's not don't be competitive, just be kind. It might not happen. Sometimes you get like, oh, nice people don't finish first. It will pay off eventually. And it might be 20 years down the line, but I swear that's what I've learned is you're fortunate to have friends that help all along the way. So that's it. That's all.
I love that. Yeah, be kind. And you're definitely kind to everybody. I try to be also. It's one of those things where I'm like, it may take longer to get there, but I'd rather people have nice things to say about me once I do get there.
Yeah,
So it's better to be a nice guy. And I love what you said, like keep the dreamer in you alive, because there are many days when you're still that, 8-year-old kid with your home movie camera and the love that you had for it, you're still that same person, and you don't want to ever lose that and ever get cynical toward the business, for sure. I love that. I think I realized, was it Jay Roach, the director you were thinking of?
Yes, thank you. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I was thinking it must be Jay Roach. Yeah, because he did huge comedies, Meet the Parents and
Yeah,
Austin
and now he
Powers.
has like amazing political satire. Like it's great.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the closest movie I've come to doing something like that.
Yeah, so you've definitely got it in you, and there's a track record to prove it from all those other directors. So, the very last thing we do here at On the List is called the mystery question, where my guest from the last podcast leaves a question for my next guest. And then I'll have you send me a mystery question for my next guest, whoever that may be. So, the guest on the last podcast was my friend Travis Van Winkle, who stars on the hit show You on Netflix. So, Travis sent me a mystery question. It was printed out and sealed in this envelope
Oh gosh.
for episode 71. So I will open it for you and read it, and then you'll email me your mystery question for my next guest. Let's see, Travis Van Winkle's question for episode 71, and that's how I end every show. It threads them all together. So Travis Van Winkle's question is, when was the last time you had that nervous feeling in your stomach right before you were about to do something extraordinary, something that took a lot of courage and vulnerability?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm glad I heard this one because mine was going to be, something
It
like,
could be anything.
no, mine was going to be something really random. So I think it was honestly this movie coming out. It was flying to this non-premiere that I was nervous about. It was being told your movie's coming out in 6 weeks and then getting it down to 4 weeks and two. It was this time was the last time that happened, because in my head I go, oh, we're gonna go 22. I had a year that I didn't have to feel stress, anxiety, fear, trepidation, all that, and so it was the week building up to the movie coming out, which also included this screening.
Right.
That was the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it all worked out.
It all worked out. Thank God. Yeah.
Amazing. That was a really good question, and it brought us full circle to Clifford, which is awesome, and which is playing now. So that is a wrap on episode 71. We did it.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, Brett. You're really good at this.
Thanks.
Well researched and bright and with the right intent of uplifting people and everything else. So
I like to get everyone's origin story told.
Yes, well done.
Thanks. So we've got your story told. Thank you, Walt, for doing this. If you haven't already, be sure to check out Clifford the Big Red Dog in theaters everywhere or on Paramount Plus. And now that you've gotten all the behind the scenes stories from all of Walt's other movies, you can go back and watch those too.
Sounds good.
Fun. Yeah. So thank you again to Walt. Thank you everybody for listening, and I will talk to you next time.
Okay. Bye. Take care. See you, Brett. See you soon, bud.
Walt. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
I wanted to take a minute to talk about the sponsors of On the List: Hint Water, eBay, and Magic Spoon cereal. So first we've got Hint Water. I've got some of my favorite flavors right here. Here's the watermelon, the strawberry kiwi, raspberry, pineapple, and I also love the crisp apple, blood orange, lemon, pear, clementine. I love all the flavors. So what's really cool about Hint is that there's no sugar, no diet sweeteners, no calories, no preservatives, and it's non-GMO certified. It's also vegan, contains no nuts, no soy, no gluten, no MSG. And so Hint is offering home delivery when you sign up on the Hint website, drinkhint.com. And they're offering new customers 36 bottles for $36 if you use the code NEW36 at checkout, NEW36. So go to drinkhint.com and use the code NEW36 at checkout. And next we've got eBay. So if you like vintage sneakers as much as I do, eBay is the place for you. Here's a pair right here. Here's another pair right here. So what's cool about eBay is that They've got rare dead stock, but they've also got the latest releases, and you can find the exact pair that you're looking for on eBay. So it was actually the original sneaker marketplace, and it's still the place to go to get the pair you've been looking for. So eBay has an authenticity guarantee, and they also have a team of independent professional authenticators performing rigorous inspections of the sneakers that you purchase before they're sent to you. So you can shop confidently knowing that your pair is the real deal. And for sneaker sellers out there, eBay eliminated selling fees on sneakers over $100. So it's free to sell or flip your collection. Other sites take 25%, but eBay waived the fee. So check out ebay.com/sneakers today. And last but not least, Magic Spoon cereal. So Magic Spoon cereal is one of my favorite cereals. There it is right there. This is the peanut butter flavor. So, if you've tried to cut back on sugar or carbs or unhealthy foods in general, then Magic Spoon's the answer for you. So they've got frosted, blueberry, cocoa. I mix the cocoa with the peanut butter, so you have peanut butter and chocolate. Also mix the frosted with the blueberry. And they've also got a fruity flavor. And everyone I've told Magic Spoon about has gotten hooked on it. So the best thing about Magic Spoon cereal, besides the fact that it tastes so good, is zero sugar. No sugar at all, even though it tastes great. It's also low carb, only 3 grams, so it's keto friendly. And it's high in protein, 11 grams per serving. So it's got everything you need, and it excludes all the stuff you don't, and it's just really good. So if you go to magicspoon.com/Brett, BRETT, you can make your own variety pack of 4 flavors. You can choose from frosted, blueberry, fruity, cocoa, peanut butter, and whatever new flavors they have to offer. Then just use the code BRETT, BRETT, at checkout for free shipping. So go to magicspoon.com/Brett and then use the code BRETT, BRETT, at checkout for free shipping. And I will see you guys next time.